Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. We're going to get into Bondi Beach, Brown University, a ton of Trump news. But first, I think we're going to lead off with Candace Owens and the TPUSA supposed peace summit. I got a lot to kind of say about that. That being said, we will read all the comments, so please leave a comment. It really keeps the show having a little bit of a flow. We're going to read them in batches about every 20 to 30 minutes so we can kind of keep the structure of the show. Last time we went a little wild and we didn't get to a lot of the stories.
Yes, and a tragedy again on Bondi Beach in Australia and at Brown University and with Rob Reiner as well, the film director. So we are thinking about everybody that was involved and the tragedy and the magnitude of what it means that so many things happened over the weekend. But leading up with the story of Candace Owens and Erika Kirk, because of course the drama apparently takes precedent. So
well, and we're invested. We've done quite a few episodes, and I think we're going to follow it all the way through the end here. So you're going to see the daily coverage of what's going on with TPUSA and Candace. It was very interesting when I woke up this morning. A supposed peace summit has been set for today.
Yes, yesterday Erika Kirk tweeted that she wanted to meet in private, in person with Candace Owens, that there would be no tweets, no live streams, and nothing until after the summit was over. We haven't really heard anything up to now. I guess we will continue to check throughout this stream. But as of now, it seems like they have met. However, there is no further information up to now.
There is some information. The information one, when this thing was kind of announced, I almost expected Candace to go to TPUSA in Arizona. That's not the case. It seems like Erika took a jet to see Candace in Tennessee. So they're doing it on Candace's ground. I think they're going to reach out an olive branch here and they want to kill this stuff for the midterms. Also, I think they thought the interview on Saturday was going to go a lot better than it did. There was a lot of bad reactions to that interview. That being said, they had agreed not to make any further statements or live streams, and that doesn't seem to be the case because right before we went on the air, TPUSA was doing their live stream trying to debunk this thing.
Well, because they said that that's what they were going to do.
Well, you said this is what you were going to do. And Candace said she was going to do a live stream debunking the live stream, which I thought was crazy. That being said, you sent Erika out there to distract her, maybe. So Candace can't do her live stream while TPUSA is doing their live stream. Also, TPUSA did not put this on their regular channel. It was on, what was the name of the channel again?
Real America's Voice.
Real America's Voice. It was actually really hard for me to find. I was looking all over for this thing. So even if they do the debunking, it's not going to get a lot of coverage. There was not a lot of clips of it yet, even up. So
well, I mean, they did have clips on their channel about it that I saw. But let's see what actually happened late yesterday and maybe earlier today from Mariana while Erika Kirk and Candace Owens' secret showdown incoming. I call it a peace summit, hopefully. Erika Kirk is stepping away from the online drama and heading straight into a real life sit down. She just announced a private meeting with Candace Owens today to discuss whatever sparked their public feud. Candace quickly replied, "I'm very much looking forward to this discussion. Tweets, live streams, and shade all paused for now. It's time to ditch the drama for dialogue, but what if it's just the calm before a bigger storm?" And here is Erika Kirk's original tweet, which said, "Candace Owens and I are meeting for a private in-person discussion on Monday, December 15th. Candace and I have agreed that public discussions, live streams, and tweets are on hold until after this meeting. It seems like the meeting has finished, so we'll see if anything comes up. I look forward to a productive conversation." And Candace replied pretty quickly, "I'm very much looking forward to this discussion."
Well, TPUSA has a lot of money. I mean, just to throw her 20 or even $40 million to shut the hell up, I think would be in their best interest at this point. They could make a big money offer like that if I don't know if they would. That being said, it's going to be very interesting to see how Candace responds to this. Also, if she does make peace with TPUSA, I had brought up, I thought there was a trap being laid for Nick Fuentes and he didn't get drawn into it. If she does make peace and Nick Fuentes had gone with her, he would have been left out in the cold and he would have been in the worst possible situation. He didn't fall into that trap. So I'm going to be interested and I'll have more to say about it, kind of based upon what Candace Owens says mainly. And I'm a little bit disappointed in TPUSA saying they weren't going to go ahead with a live stream or any further comments until after this meeting. It doesn't seem like they necessarily stuck to that.
Well, I think the treaty of not tweeting or having any kind of discussion about that meeting was for specifically Erika and Candace, not for all of TPUSA, because TPUSA had said that they were going to do it today anyways, and it seems like at least they kind of did. I don't think they did the formal one that they were supposed to do, because they said they were going to do it from the Charlie Kirk show, which is not where I found most of the things, but...
Well, I think they kind of did do it in a subtle way. And Erika went out there, talked to Candace, had Candace agree not to say anything. Well, they put on their debunking. It seems a little shady to me. I would love to see in the comments if anybody else thinks, like, I don't really have much of a side on this thing as of now. Like, I appreciate that Candace is asking questions. I want her to continue to ask questions, but she did say she was going to stop if Erika said she was going to stop. Candace is taking a lot of heat for this thing right now, so possibly there could be a truce on the way. It's going to be interesting because there is quite a few communities that are now asking questions gathered behind Candace Owens, and I don't think she has control of a lot of those groups. So if she tells them to stop, they might just turn on her.
And that's the thing. I think she created this mob, and now there's always a danger that the mob might turn against you.
Yeah.
And I just think those that continue with the crazier conspiracy theories maybe should start to back off.
Well, I'm not going down all these rabbit holes with all these Israeli conspiracy theories for all the stuff that happened the last few days. But if anybody was going to go down those rabbit holes, it would be Candace. And it's going to be very interesting if she stays away from the Israel topic going forward, or she doesn't. It might indicate something that happened at that TPUSA meeting.
But again, we'll have to wait and see. And I do hope, mostly on Candace's side, that it kind of, if she continues asking questions, at least it goes into a direction where the questions at least make more sense, and there is actual truth seeking out there instead of just blatant accusations of random people. But I mean, if the FBI is doing it now as well with a guy from the Brown University, I mean, I guess Candace can continue to do so.
Yeah, well, I think the groups that are kind of surrounding Candace and doing their own little research, and then Candace is kind of picking up on some of that stuff, they're much more grounded. And I don't think they're going to stop asking questions just because Conspiracy Candace wants to stop asking questions, because potentially they're going to make a payout or something else to her. I mean, this thing can go in any number of directions at this point. So I really thought some news was going to come out of this meeting by 5:30. It hasn't come out yet. So I guess tomorrow we may run a short show tomorrow just talking about this.
And I do think with Candace, for example, maybe being offered money by TPUSA, I will repeat once again, I don't think she's in it for the money. She doesn't really need it. She has George Farmer, her husband, and his father, who's a lord, bought and paid for, apparently. But I don't think money would make her stop. Maybe Erika Kirk went with lawyers as well.
Well,
we don't know.
Well, you bring up a funny thing, because I've constantly said right from the beginning, I think Candace is UK intelligence working for the city of London. They've been trying to undermine the Trump administration from the beginning. George Farmer was set up to kind of potentially take a leadership role in TPUSA. Maybe they actually give that to them and embed UK intelligence into TPUSA.
And I said we'd move a little bit away from the conspiracies and stick to the facts. But I guess it's just me that will stick to the facts.
Hold on. I still have a ton of questions about Candace Owens' husband, and I really do hope at this point.
And about Candace Owens herself.
I hope Nick Fuentes throws caution to the wind. He said he was possibly going to do an expose. Do the expose. Let everybody know what you kind of found out, because he was already way further in his research than most other people.
And it did seem like, once again, the plane trackers are out in full force, at least allegedly. Again, this is not confirmed at all, but from Diligent Denizen, it appears that Erika Kirk flew to Nashville to meet Candace Owens on her own turf. The private jet that flew from Arizona to Provo the day Charlie Kirk was ended flew to Nashville, Tennessee this morning. Seems to signal TPUSA is very desperate to put out this PR disaster. I don't know if I agree with the commentary, but there it is, apparently left at 7:30 a.m. or 8:24 a.m. and then arrived there around 12:07. And there are reports now that the summit or the peace talks have been concluded.
I think they're going to use the carrot and stick approach. They tried to kind of use the stick a little bit. It didn't work out too well for TPUSA. Now they're going to offer a major carrot. They're going to probably come lawyered up and say, if you don't take this deal, we're going to come at you pretty hard. That being said, they're going to have to, I think, bring George Farmer possibly into the mix on TPUSA. So I'm going to really look what happens with George Farmer. And he's really one of the characters nobody's been talking about. I know we have, but a lot of other people ask roundabout questions here or there. But when you start digging into this guy, things look a little shady there.
Can you also find a clip of a woman who allegedly worked for Candace Owens? Again, not confirmed, not verified, but from Cinema Shogun says, holy S, woman who used to work for Candace Owens blows the lid off of her Blexit grift. She even provides a website where you can fact check all her claims.
Yeah, and I actually had a couple clips. We left one in the show, and I just wanted to kind of show this because things are going the wrong way, not just for TPUSA, but they're starting to go the wrong way for Candace too. People are really looking into Candace, her husband, George Farmer, former people that used to work for Candace. Stories are coming out. So if they offer Candace Owens the proper kind of carrot, maybe offering George Farmer a leadership role and possibly some discrete cash, maybe she would be willing to take it because it would be in the best interest of both parties.
Shall we watch it? Again, this is alleged.
Both my husband and I volunteered and worked for Candace Owens' nonprofit organization, Blexit, in 2020, 2021, and 2022. The last 3 years that she was president of that organization, they were $1 million in the hole every single year. In 2022, she paid herself $250,000 that year and claimed on the tax forms that she was working an average of 30 hours a week for Blexit. This is while she was doing her Daily Wire show every week. And I want you to go and look at her platform during 2022. Was she even ever mentioning Blexit during that time? Because she's like basically abandoned that mission. Yet she claims she was working 30 hours a week for Blexit. And then you can look this up. All of this is public knowledge. Go to ProPublica. It's a place where you can look up Form 990s, where you can look up the tax returns on these nonprofits. That year, Blexit spent $800,000 on social media fundraising. And then she also spent another $380,000 on security. These are donor funds. And when I was volunteering for Blexit, we were doing events like delivering meals and lunches to police stations. She was never part of those things. What she was part of was the Blexit rallies where she was flying in private jets to these rallies, using donor funds to fly in private jets. And you're gonna be like, oh, you're just a hater. You're just a hater for doing this. Wait a second. Didn't Candace go after Kimberly? Didn't Candace go after Kimberly Klasick for doing these same things? Isn't she demanding Turning Point to be very transparent about their funds and their fundraising? Yet she is allowed to operate Blexit in the hole by -$1 million every single year for the last 3 years she has it, and then just pawn it off to Turning Point USA? Yeah, in 2023, Turning Point USA became, they took over Blexit because Candace couldn't run it. She was running it into -$1 million every year. In fact, that 2022 was -$1.7 million. You can go and fact check every single thing I have just said to you. Go to ProPublica.org, look up Blexit organization. Candace, did you lie?
Okay. And that being said, I think Candace could be amenable to a large supposed donation here to really quiet her down. She is very money oriented. I do know that she drapes herself like a lot of organizations, including TPUSA, in religion, so you can't question anything they do. That being said, Candace does have a history. The thing is, if she turns down a discrete cash offer, I think that's going to be more of an indication that she is working for a British intelligence agency that can't be bought. And I will say, we did say we were going to read comments in bunches, and we'll read some in a little bit. But I would like to say hi to Rafa. It is the one comment we'll always make an exception for.
Yes, hello Rafa, happy Monday. And also hello Voswadio. We'll read your comments after we're done with the first influencer Candace section. And then we'll go per section. We'll read the comments afterwards. Because yeah, it was a little bit all over the place last time. But with Candace especially, and her reaction to Erika Kirk going on that interview with Barry Weiss, who I'm not a fan of, and I wasn't a fan of the interview itself, but Candace's questioning and reaction and wondering what's going on with the money, I think once again, and as that ex-post said, you shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house, and Candace has managed to keep all of her dirty laundry in the basket, but I think a lot of people are now very willing to throw it up in the air. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that could come out about her, but I don't, once again, with all of this drama, I don't think in general it is conducive to anything positive for the American people, America, the world in general, those that look up to the conservative movements and the MAGA movement in America, like here in Mexico as an example, because we're seeing it crumble and it's becoming ridiculous.
And I don't really
And
know.
I'm including myself in that as someone that has admired and wants to be able to produce something similar here in Mexico, not just myself, but where I think it's necessary. But now you're seeing this breakdown in them all infighting, and it's just becoming ridiculous. And that's what the left used to do, but now they're doing it themselves.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. I mean, I was checking every hour today. I'm obviously drawn into the story at this point. I wanted to deny it before, but I want to see what Candace's reaction, because she is going to lose a ton of street credibility amongst her followers if she calls peace here. Because she's kind of put this thing out that, oh, this is a mission from God. I'm going to discover this and I'm going to go after this. And now she's just going to drop it because the widow comes. I mean, a lot of people, this could be very divisive.
Well, and again, I think she also got a lot of heat because she had said that if Erika Kirk told her to stop, she would stop. And then she didn't stop. There's literally a clip of her watching Erika Kirk saying, stop. That's all I have to say during this next Barry Weiss interview we're going to see just now.
Well,
And Candace literally right after says, no. She said, stop lying. Erika, tell me, where am I lying? And it's just the mixing of words and the changing of goalposts that I think most people are getting a little bit sick and tired of.
Well, I know you kind of...
And the lack of anything substantial coming out of her investigation.
Well, I know you kind of wrote Candace off a while ago. I didn't. But at this point, because I do watch both sides in depth for our daily coverage, I will say this is getting a bad rub on both sides. There is tons of dirt coming out on Candace. We cover some of it on the show, and there's a ton of dirt coming about TPUSA. Again, we cover some of it on the show. We cover the stuff that can pretty much be legitimized. A lot of the stuff can't. So they both may want a truce, but I don't know if Candace can actually have a truce at this point.
That's the thing. I think she's too far in deep. How do you say?
In too deep.
In too deep. Thank you.
She's in too deep, mainly because a lot of the connections that are being made for TPUSA and where their money is coming from and their connections are coming from are Israel. And Candace, if she makes a truce at this point, it's going to look like she maybe took a bribe.
Or capitulated.
And she's going with the Zionists, which she, for years now, has said, well, she's not going to go down that road. She's against it. She's a Christian genocide. I mean, she's built this up where it's going to be really hard for her to make a truce here. And the fact that TPUSA is actually going to her just is another interesting kind of wrinkle to this story. But why don't we go into the interview?
Yeah, I was going to say, we also saw over the weekend Steven Crowder release video footage of when Candace Owens left the Daily Wire, and someone else that also has now left is, oh my God, I forgot his name. What's the name of the ex-Daily Wire CEO?
Jeremy Boring.
Jeremy Boring, sorry, my brain fart. Jeremy Boring explaining why they were, cutting contact with Candace Owens and firing her essentially. But also over the weekend, we saw the famed CBS interview from Barry Weiss with Erika Kirk. It's in a town hall-ish setting, and the one that Candace Owens had sent her mommy sleuths to. I don't know how much else the mommy sleuths uncovered, but there was a moment that I think most people found, I found it kind of gross, but that most people found kind of gross, and Jack Posobiec says CBS just had Hunter Kozak appear at the Erika Kirk town hall and ask her to condemn Trump's rhetoric, because that's the most important thing to do, apparently, when you have Charlie Kirk's widow who was assassinated right in front of you. This is a leftist who asked Charlie his last question in Utah, and he didn't even say sorry for your loss. And I think that is why it seems a little distasteful.
Yeah, this was a very strange question. Why this gentleman was even here? He's been offered $60,000, and this is not a guy with a lot of money. $60,000 to take a lie detector test from Jesse on Fire. He originally said he would, and then he just completely ghosted it.
Because Jesse on Fire is a little bit.
Well, he's still offering the $60,000, so it's something to bring up here.
Erika, as you know, the last person that Charlie ever spoke to was a Utah Valley student named Hunter Kozak. He was asking Charlie a question that day when he was shot, and he's here tonight, and he wants to ask you a question.
Hi there. Erika, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your calls for peace and unity, and I'm likewise horrified by the people in my so-called camp who were cheering about Charlie's murder. I believe that they stoke the flames of violence. But even worse is when powerful, influential people on either side of the aisle stoke the flames. When they do it, the flames can become an inferno. And this leads me to Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth, who has more responsibility than anyone else to put the flames out. Just last month, President Trump called on 6 Democratic law.
Okay, just so you know who this kid is, his dad is the producer of the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and he has a lot of strange radical political ties to smaller organizations. And there is a lot of question marks around this kid, but let's just continue with the answer here.
Makers to be tried for sedition, which he clarified was punishable by death. He then reposted a simple message: hang them. I think that you've been making strides to bring peace to our country, and that turning point has been asking Democrats to decry the individuals who cheer for violence. I have and will continue to decry them. But any good faith effort to stop political violence must hold both parties to the same standard and expectation. So in that spirit, will you condemn the violent rhetoric of Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth?
I appreciate your question.
Pause it again. He was also going around with Destiny, and they had the Something America tour that was following around TPUSA and trying to discredit them at all their locations and bring people over to the Democratic Party.
You know my heart. Why would I ever say still murder people? This is so much deeper than just one. I understand your sentiment. I do. But this is also so much deeper than just one person. This starts at the home, okay? This starts with family. This starts with a seed that grows and grows. You can choose to have evil in your heart, or you can choose to have light. What you consume and what you absorb from the outside world will manifest itself. No, I will never agree with political violence. My husband is a victim of it. I'm a victim of it. But what I'm trying to say here is that we can blame everyone else. We have to look in the mirror when you become a father, when you become a mother. How are you raising your kids? Are you taking responsibility, or are you giving them a device and saying, go down that rabbit hole?
Okay,
I'm trying to go to Pilates
and
class.
that was the best answer she gave, and I did like that answer. That being said, the interview
Especially now, like after the weekend that we're going to talk
but
about.
the interview did not go good for her at whatsoever, or TPUSA, and it was very strange. He was even there allowed to ask that question. My guess is his producer father got him into that show because there's been so many questions around him, and they tried to do some TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, into this interview. That was not the only TDS question that was there. Man, I really wish, and I had said it on this show before, and I really wish he hadn't gone the Israel route on this interview. So many questions are being raised around TPUSA and Israel, and she went hard connecting herself, TPUSA, and Charlie to Israel. It's fine if they want to do that, but right now is not the right time. It's going to just raise more questions.
And the question also just exemplifies where the minds of the other people on the left, at least during that town hall, are and continue to be. And it is ridiculous that Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk fought so hard to get Donald Trump elected. We've all seen, if you haven't seen it, I don't have it right now, but if you haven't seen his reaction, and I saw it live because I was watching the election results coverage on the Charlie Kirk show when Trump won, and he actually shed a few tears, and Erika went over and hugged him because he had worked so hard ever since he built and decided to do something with the Tea Party movement that was going nowhere and built TPUSA, etc. So to ask his widow now to condemn Donald Trump, who Charlie Kirk was working so hard to get elected and who did help get elected, is a little ridiculous that the question was even allowed to go, I think.
Well,
I mean, it's good to be able to see what happened.
I also think the Democrats are reading the room a little bit, understanding the winds may be turning against Erika and TPUSA. And they thought they could get away with a question like this, but it still looks like it's in bad taste. Yeah. They shouldn't have gone that way. I will say this, a lot of people describe politics like pro wrestling, and there was a pro wrestler, Eddie Guerrero, who they built in a storyline after he died with his wife that was a widow, and every time she was crying, getting sympathy, and it worked for a little while, and then the audience turned against her after a few months because it was just too much. I think the sympathy is starting to wane from Erika Kirk at this point. Maybe they shouldn't put her in the spotlight. She's always turning on the waterworks. It's reasonable, but I'm telling you what, I'm watching content creator after content creator that used to be on TPUSA's side and would normally be, they're conservative, so they're on that side, but they don't have sympathy for Erika Kirk.
The thing is, I think the sides have gotten a little bit too dumb, in my opinion. Like both sides are getting a little, and they're making mistakes, and people, especially the ones that comment on the mistakes and they comment on everything,
like us,
go I think a little bit too far, to the point it stops being useful. Either useful information, useful commentary, useful questions, etc. Candace has done it. Turning Point has also done it, and I do disagree with what they did in that town hall. And if they're getting questioned so much about Israel, why are you going 100% that way and then declaring certain things and declaring yourselves to be on a side when they shouldn't? And that's not what Charlie wanted. That's what's infuriating. Charlie was kind of the glue that was holding everything together. He was inviting libertarians and pro-Israeli people, pro-Candace, etc. He was doing all of that, and he wanted it to be a big tent movement, and it's fracturing, and neither side are doing anything to glue it back together. They're just throwing dirt at each other.
My guess is she's making an offer to Candace right now to bring her into the fold in TPUSA, going to offer big money and bring her husband in the process in order to kill this thing.
But at the same time, like you asked, why is Erika Kirk crying so much, and etc. Like, I think I would do the same.
Yeah, but she shouldn't be the CEO at this point. And the fact that she does it every single interview 3 months later.
Again, if God forbid you passed away, I don't think I'd stop crying. You were my husband. I don't think I'd stop crying for a year, maybe more, forever.
But when she talks, it just
because she has to talk constantly about Charlie Kirk, about him being assassinated, about seeing his husband be assassinated for millions of people to see. Of course, every time she goes on an interview and has to talk about it, it's going to get some sort of emotion. And if she's trying to act okay, then people say she's acting. If she's trying to put in a strong face, she's acting. If she's crying, now she's acting, because why is she crying so much? Because her husband and the father of her two very young kids, they won't grow up with a father, when all they espoused for the past 6 or 7 years was have a family, have kids, and live a life of faith. And now she can't do that with her own husband.
Well, I'll tell you this. I do watch a lot of Erika Kirk and her interviews, and on some questions, she just gets it right and it looks natural. Other questions, I think she's pre-rehearsed, or she has the questions ahead of time.
Because it's probably
and she comes with these rehearsed answers and this rehearsed structure. And it's the delivery. The delivery looks like an actress.
Yes, she is acting. Again, I'm saying she's acting because if she were to answer every single question, especially the really hard ones where she has to talk about Charlie or their relationship or whatever, she would break down. And I think she has to rehearse it. And she has
should not be the face of TPUSA at this point.
Right now,
a temporary CEO.
Right now, she's the face of her husband's book tour, and she's going on the book tour for Charlie.
And that book tour is part of the problem at this point because of the questions that came up. If anybody knows what the book is actually about, that's what's raising a lot of questions as well. Okay.
Well, that's what Charlie wanted to write, and that's the last thing he wrote.
Let's go into the comments. I know we had quite a few.
Yes, because end of Candace section. Candace and Erika. Rafa says, happy Monday once again, Rafa. Thank you for being here. Bosuario from our Spanish channel says, hey guys, good afternoon. Just dropping by to say hi. I left you a message on your Instagram about 2 days ago about some news I think is important and interesting, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, let me know what you think. Cheers. See you in the next Spanish stream. Thank you. And yes, I do stream in Spanish after this one. We have a live at 9:30. Usually, if this goes long, it's usually 10:30. You'll see it pop up whenever we schedule it after this one, all in Spanish. Hold on. Okay, I read that one. And Bosuario says, hey everyone, don't forget to like and share. Thank you so much, and thank you for the reminder.
It sounds like all your Spanish subscribers are coming over.
Rafa says, hi guy, thanks for saying hi.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say Non says, hello all, that wasn't a town hall, it was a scripted TV show and it was terrible. Again, I will say.
Yeah, it was terrible and it didn't turn out well and they got a lot of bad publicity from it. And it was hyped up by Barry Weiss, by TPUSA, as they were really coming for it.
But again, I will say,
backfired.
If anything were to happen to you, and for some reason I have to give an interview or a bunch of interviews or talk about you, and I'm doing it live in front of a bunch of people, and as Candace says, donors and people who donated, etc., then I would try to rehearse the things I'm supposed to say. Otherwise, I'd break down every 3 seconds when I'm trying to talk about you. And I think a lot of people aren't once again, as I said last stream, taking in that human and humanity aspect and that empathy. And maybe a lot of people haven't lost people close to them. But again, it takes a long time, and the grieving process, especially on air, live for everybody to watch, is very slow.
This was Barry Weiss's Zionist outfit, and that fit into the whole narrative here and the questions that are being asked. Because when she went on Glenn Beck, nobody really had a problem with that interview. I thought she came off a lot more authentic than usual in that interview. I thought maybe she was turning it around, so this Barry Weiss interview would have went a lot better, and it just
it
went
was
bad.
pre-recorded a while ago.
Okay.
So maybe they turned it after.
Maybe they realized after
maybe
the
she
big
did the Glenn Beck one after.
Maybe after the big important interview, she actually learned.
But, and again, I will say, I don't love that it was with Barry Weiss. I don't love that it was on CBS either. I don't agree with Barry Weiss on basically anything. And I do think...
Well, and everybody knows the money trail that went into making that network and that payout Barry Weiss got, and how she's connected to Ben Shapiro and a lot of other, news networks.
But there's also other influencer drama that was kind of been dragged initially through the Candace Owens TPUSA drama. But we did see Tim Pool make some comments about Kim Iverson, who I'm not a fan of. I know you watch her. I've never really liked her commentary, and that's okay. You can not like us, and that's completely fine.
I do like.
But I've watched her,
and I do like Kim Iverson. I started watching her during the Jibby Jab era, and I've continued to watch her. I know you don't like her, but we typically like different content creators in general. That's why when it comes to the issue of all this controversy, we're usually on different sides. Yes. I think I took this story out the other day because there was just too much controversy of other content creators.
So I
added in it.
So Tim Pool responded to Kim Iverson making a fake claim and promoting a fake claim about the shooting that had happened in his complex apartment, not apartment, his studio recently. I think it was 2 weekends ago, and she had started spreading verifiably false claims. So Tim called her out on his show, and he also said she smells and that she never came back on the show. Apparently she did, and now they're fighting each other.
Oh, I didn't realize that she was making claims at Tim Pool that the shooting was fake. Like,
yeah, that's
Candace
why they started fighting.
Oh, okay.
So Kim was backing up Candace's claims and also adding new things about it as
Tim
well.
Pool's comments now make a lot more sense, because she was the original controversy that I had seen was Tim said she stunk and like she never showered, which I was like, that's really out of nowhere. Even if she did stink, which I don't think was the case, why would you just make that comment out of nowhere?
I did watch that whole Tim Pool show where this came up.
Yeah.
And it was because he said, now there's a bunch of other commentary people making fake claims about both the shooting that happened recently and the shooting that happened a while ago in his other, I think it was Maryland or somewhere else, studio that they used to have before, when they were saying that his brother was the one that had shot at his studio, which is not true. And he was saying, it's as if I went on to say, oh, Kim Iverson stinks, she never came back on the show and she was really rude. He was giving an example of, you have to watch it all.
He tweeted that out as well on top of that.
Yes, because he said, I'm going to tweet it right now and see how far it goes. So,
I will say this.
It's a snowball.
I will say this about shootings happening at Tim Pool's complexes or studios. I don't doubt those at all, because he does do a live IRL show. So the address for the studio is out there in mass. Mm-hmm. These other content creators that don't do a live show and bring in a lot of guests, they're able to keep the location of their studios a lot more discreet.
And Tim also had a rule for a long time that he wanted only guests present, like in the flesh. So a lot of people, I'm sure, know his address. But Kim Iverson says, yes, I threatened to sue Tim Pool. Here's why. Let me see if it's on 2. Yeah.
Well, there's a bit of drama between myself and Tim Pool going on right now. I'm going to address exactly what was said, what he deleted, why it was defamatory, an attempt at humiliating me, why it's different from free speech. I'm not a snowflake. When I saw this, I thought, oh, okay, that's gross. I mean, it's just a gross thing to say about somebody. I started getting these strange messages that I was seeing on my Twitter account, and it was these random pop-up messages that would say, Kim, I heard you stink, or is it true, Kim, you smell bad? And then I saw another one, and then I saw another one, and then I saw another one, and I thought, okay, where is this coming from? Like, somebody must have said something. And then I finally see this is the tweet that Tim Tim had put out there that he has deleted. He probably got a phone call from an attorney. He said, when Kim Iverson came to our studio, she smelled like she didn't wipe. We got the feeling that she intentionally doesn't. It was weird. It's why we haven't had her back on. We couldn't stand the smell. I've been on Tim's show twice, and I've been invited on a third time. Clearly not stinky enough, because they invited me back. Just last year, he writes me and he says, do you got time to come back on the show? And I said, sure, would love to. They tried multiple times to get me on. I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the time to be there. So it's demonstrably false. That part's important. Tim Pool is not exactly the biggest truth teller on the planet, as we know. Now let's get to the threat of suing him, because I did. Now let me explain, because you guys know that I'm a free speech advocate. I don't believe in censorship. I absolutely believe people should be able to criticize public figures harshly, unfairly, even rudely. I said I believe Tim is influenced by pro-Israel donors. That is political commentary. It's opinion. It's analysis. It's me looking at his editorial line, his guests, his behavior, things I've heard them say, and drawing a conclusion. Those are political accusations about motive and influence, and they live in the most protected zone of speech that we have. Now, what he said and why it's different, he didn't attack my ideas, he didn't attack my politics, he didn't say Kim is wrong or Kim is biased. He told a very specific story. That is not a political argument. That is not opinion about my motives. That is not commentary on my analysis.
He was doing it to prove a point that you can't just go out and lie about somebody. And she literally took the bait about what he was saying. So he again, if you haven't seen the whole segment where he's making and proving and showing and his hypothesis of why people are circulating and continuing, even the bigger figures like Kim Iverson continuing to circulate the wrong information about the shooting at his studio, then go watch it, because again, he fully explains it, and it was all done with the purpose of exemplifying exactly the dangers of what Kim Iverson had been doing by lying about the shooting.
Well, it's also going to be very interesting if she does actually sue him, because I could see this actually sticking with her if she goes to conservative events or she does have contrarian opinions within the conservative wing, and she's a former liberal. So I could see her if she goes to, say, TPUSA event or CPAC, they maybe call her Stinky Kim or something like that. It could really stick with her for a lot of her career here. And
but again, what about the lies about Tim's studio being shot at and the lies that were told about that?
But that's why I'm interested to see if she actually follows through with the lawsuit. I mean, if this thing is sticking and people are even saying this in their comments all the time, it's definitely going to follow her in real life. Just like when Trump gives another politician a nickname, if it's a good nickname, it tends to stick and it does a lot of damage.
And I'll just read quickly. Non says, OMG, WTF. Yeah, exactly. What is this becoming? Has this whole movement, commentary, the independent journalism or the independent commentary space that was supposed to combat the mainstream media is now turning into an even bigger.
Okay, and we just have one more update story about the infighting amongst conservative commentators or politicians, and then we're going to get into all the news and politics of the day. But I did want to give an update on this story because it did come in yesterday.
Yeah, so we did speak about Dan Crenshaw versus Sean Ryan, and Dan Crenshaw has now said, update to the absurd Sean Ryan saga. I've proposed we go on his show, Man to Man, and get to the truth. His platform, his audience live, working out the details to make it happen.
And of all the infighting that's happening, I actually think this is the most important because Dan Crenshaw is a politician, and I think he is making a lot of most likely corrupt stock trades. He's becoming a millionaire, and he only makes $170,000 a year. I would like to see a full financial investigation, not only on him, but other rhino candidates, so we can clear out the rhinos in the midterms, put America First candidates in there before Trump is out of office. Because if Trump is out of office and the GOP is filled with rhinos, they're going to take back over the conservative movement.
And again, I do agree this would be a good strategy to get out the career politicians if you can find the dirt on essentially each of them.
Well, and if they can do a proper investigation and show really how to lay out a financial investigation on a politician, then they can go. It really lends an equation to kind of repeat against other politicians that are corrupt.
Hey everyone, all right. On my way out of DC after a long week where we have real work to do. Been working all week on solving healthcare issue in America so we don't shut down the government again in January. And next week we're looking at banning transgender surgery on minors. So look, I hate doing these kind of videos because that's distracting from that work I just told you about. Because this video is unfortunately not about that work. It's about Sean Ryan blowing up the internet last night talking about me. And so I'm going to respond to that. I'm going to give you the context, and I'm going to save you the time to watch his 8-minute rambling video and kind of give you the facts here. This whole saga with Sean Ryan started just over a year ago. Now, I've never met Sean. We never served together. I don't know why he's got an issue with me. Maybe it's politics. He did very positively platform Gavin Newsom, of all people. He even gave him a gun to try and make him more appealable to maybe center-right voters. I don't know. I don't know what his intent is or why he's angry with me. But about a year ago, he took his indirect swipe at me. And I say indirect because he didn't mention me by name. He just said, hey, congressmen getting rich and, they can afford things like Steve Aoki at their birthday party. That can't be cheap. And so he accused me of hiring Steve Aoki, a big famous and probably expensive DJ, to play at a private party for myself. By the way, not true at all. I did go to a Steve Aoki performance with a bunch of friends and supporters, but paid tickets just like everybody else. So no idea why he's obsessed with that story, but he is. And so I sent him a DM, private DM. I didn't publicly say anything to him. And in that DM, I said this. Said exactly this. I said, hey, Sean, you have the ability to contact your fellow team guy if you've got a problem with me or have questions about how I'm quote unquote getting rich. Some of my boys at 6 told me about your indirect swipe at me. From the comment you made, it seems like you have some beliefs that are based on trendy narratives instead of facts. Okay, so that's the only thing I ever said.
Okay,
You never
you can
responded.
stop it there. And they read the same text message in completely different tones. And I can see how it's a threatening text message because his boys at 6 are one of the most elite special forces units. I definitely see when you watch Sean Ryan read the message, it could be intimidating. And Sean Ryan's ex-special forces as well. I will say this, if you do watch the whole clip, I do recommend you go watch the whole clip. He never addresses the crux of the issue, which is, I think, the corruption. And I think this is where people need to go with this. Eye patch Crenshaw needs to be investigated for financial impropriety here. And I think a lot of conservative politicians need to be investigated before the midterms, and appropriate candidates need to be put up in their place. This is a real opportunity to revolutionize the conservative movement in the United States. When Trump came in, he came from the top down and he was able to get a few America First candidates in there. But a lot of these Rhino GOP's candidates he kind of worked with, and they're still embedded in there, and they're waiting for Trump to leave so they can take over the movement again.
And I do think, again, with the drain the swamp and getting rid of career politicians, corrupt politicians, etc., it has to be on both sides. You can't just get rid of one side, but then keep all the bad ones on your side, because then it just becomes the same thing. And we're seeing it happen literally right now.
Well, also, I think a lot of people that are kind of in the middle or slightly liberal, if they start clearing out corrupt politicians on the right and getting proper politicians in there and start monitoring them on a regular basis, I think it's going to be very appealing that maybe we can get rid of corruption out of politics, and maybe they'll vote for the right then, because then it will force the left to clean up their side. And if they don't, the voters should not vote for them.
Yeah. And since we're closing out the influencer drama part of the live, Nan says, Tim Pool has totally lost it. An embarrassing display. I still like Tim Pool. You may judge me if you want for that, but I do think he has been mostly the voice of reason on a lot of these things. And while he has been criticized a lot for initial things he has come out and said or revealed or whatever, he has been proven right most of the time since, for a while, for years now.
I think Tim Pool's a fence sitter and he's milquetoast. I'll just come right out and say it. I think he's been wrong on a lot of things too. That being said, I do like Tim Pool, just like I do like Candace Owens, just like I like Tucker Carlson, and I think they all work for an intelligence agency. And I say it every episode. I think we're seeing a war of different intelligence agencies that want to take over the conservative party. And we're seeing it play out through social media influencers. And I don't think it's just those three. I've pointed out on multiple occasions, I think it's almost all the top social media influencers that are involved in politics are really cooperating with different intelligence agencies, whether that be the EU, whether that be the City of London and the UK, or different factions within the US intelligence. And we'll get more into that because there's a lot of stories today actually involving US intelligence agencies.
And while I do think that, again, allegedly, maybe there are interests within and for and at all of these influencers, of course, now that is the way to use any kind of propaganda on any side. Use the people that have the loudest voices right now, which are going to be on YouTube, social media, commentary space, etc. I always say, and I say it in Spanish and English, don't fully agree with anybody you watch or anybody you get news, information, or just commentary from. I think it is healthy to have that discernment and be able to do the critical thinking of saying, okay, I agree with this person on these things, not on this, and why, and help strengthen also your points of view and the way you think about things. And that's why I always say you don't have to agree with me or us all the time. We know less than we know more. I don't pretend to know everything. So, and I say it in Spanish all the time too, because I think it's an important message that we don't hear at all as much from all of these, commentary people, influencers, whatever you want to call them. They're always trying to be like, just watch me. I'm right. And I'm saying, have a diverse media diet.
Well,
I hate that word. And be able to discern the things where you might agree or disagree, but don't just stop listening, because that's how the echo chambers form.
Well, I'll also say there was definitely a strategy by the Trump administration to bring major influencers in. So this is why I think a lot of these influencers work for intelligence agencies or they have been approached by them. The strategy definitely worked on a certain level, especially with Benny Johnson. I mean, he is the administration's line for social media. What the administration wants to say, they say through Benny Johnson if they can't say it themselves. Tim Pool has also been given tremendous access to the administration, and I think his coverage is slightly colored by that. That being said, yeah, I just think take every influencer with a grain of salt. And I know when I look at these political influencers, I always look at which intelligence agency are they working for.
And I just discern each of their talking points. But we do have some more comments on this, and then we'll move on. Non also says, LOL, this guy. I'm Dan Crenshaw. I'm Navy SEAL that yells at 10-year-old girls. The SEAL and Special Forces community hate this guy. He was recently barred from official travel because he is a sloppy drunk or drunk. He has no boys at 6. What a joke. I 100% agree. It's an intelligence community battle.
Well, and a lot of people were scared to kind of approach Dan Crenshaw because, he lost his eye. He was a war veteran, a lot of that. But everybody kind of knew he was corrupt behind the scenes, or they had an inkling that he was corrupt. So I absolutely loved when, Alex Stein approached him and started calling him Eye Patch McCain and just harassed him nonstop. It really took down that guard for people to actually speak up against him and look into his financial corruption. Mm-hmm. So thank you to Alex Stein for doing that. And I really do hope, Sean Ryan continues with this investigation and really pushes it forward, and come the midterms or whenever Dan Crenshaw is next up for re-election, they kind of get rid of him.
And for it to hit more on both sides, more politicians, career politicians at that, on both sides, because again, if you don't clean out the system itself, and even the ones that you might like, but some wrongdoing is happening, nothing's ever going to change.
Well, and Dan Crenshaw is a big money politician. There is a lot of big money behind him from a lot of different sources. So if they can really expose him and go after a big money donor, other politicians that maybe don't get quite as big money, they're going to really get scared and start getting in line. Okay.
And now we're moving on to U.S. news. And of course, the headliner for the U.S., at least for the past 2 days, has been the Brown University shooting, terror attack. We still don't really know what, because the investigation into what has happened has been completely failed. And they've failed at each level of their investigation. They still, up to, a few minutes ago, didn't have a guy, or half an hour ago, they didn't have a real suspect. They released information about a potential suspect or somebody that they were looking into or was being questioned. All the information came out about that guy. He got doxxed and harassed online, of course. And then they had to come out and say, oh, no, it actually wasn't. We're not looking into him anymore. They took away the stay-in-place order that they had before they even have the guy. Who knows where he is, who knows who he is, and even what the motive is. Again, there's too many questions about this, and bad management, both from the university president, from the mayor, from everybody.
Okay, why don't we get
involved.
into the story and then we can talk about it a little bit?
Because I was introducing it. From the BBC, what we know so far about the Brown University shooting. And in case you didn't know, but just to recap at least what's known up to now, police in Providence, Rhode Island are back on the manhunt for the suspect who fatally shot 2 people and wounded 9 others at Brown University on Saturday. Officials had detained a person of interest on Sunday, but later released the person, explaining that the evidence now points in a different direction. However, his information got spread all over the place. There is not an immediate threat to Brown or the local community, the university said in a statement just before midnight on Sunday, even though they don't have the guy or don't know where he is. All remaining in-person exams classes for the semester have been canceled. The 2 deceased have now been identified as university students Mohammed Aziz Zakov and Ella Cook. The attack on the campus brings the number of, and then they go on to do their little propaganda about gun violence. But what happened? The gunman opened fire in a classroom around 4 p.m. local time on Saturday at the Barris and Hawley Engineering Building at the eastern end of Brown's campus, according to officials. Final exams are taking place. They were studying there. And it just became a scramble. It does seem like, at least for Ella, there was some sort of targeting, at least initially what the people that were around there have said. But again, there's not much information that has come out that is fully verified. And the response from both the university and, in my opinion, the police department and even the FBI has been completely wrong.
Well, the amount of cameras that are on that campus specifically is absolutely ridiculous. There is a ton of cameras, yet they only had grainy footage to begin with. Now, there's been 7 more videos that have come out since then, and these are from cameras on houses that are surrounding the university, showing the guy walking down the street. Why aren't the cameras on the university? Where are the images of this guy's face? I understand he was wearing a mask because I did watch the other 7 cameras from the houses. These are civilians releasing the video. It's a little bit ridiculous that they don't even have a proper description of this guy at this point. The FBI is failing at an extraordinary level right now, not just on this case. It almost seems like they're trying to hem up another gentleman. We can get into that, and that was the January 6th explosive device individual. Kash Patel is failing at a magnanimous level here. The only person worse than Kash Patel in this administration is Pam Bondi. And this is coming from somebody that was supporting Kash Patel when he originally got the position. He ran on social media for over a year saying how he was going to clean out the swamp. He doesn't even seem to be able to do his job properly. And he's trying to frame people so he doesn't look bad. At least that's what's happening, in my opinion.
But also the response from the police department, the response from the mayor, Smiley, Brett or Brian, one of those two, the openly, proudly gay man, seems to care more about that than actually doing his job, apparently. But these are the questions that I think are important when something like this happens, especially right after and even now when there is they have nobody. They don't even know what they're looking for. They haven't released age, sex, race, accent, origin, nothing. Nothing has been released. And that's when the questions start swirling as to, do they actually know? Are they hiding things? There are so many cameras on campus. Maybe they do know who it is, but they want to keep it quiet to protect the person, to protect the others. Who knows? But again, the lack of information is what helps breed all of these other questions and eventually goes into the conspiracy theory territory. Like, there is a valid question. Why was the, door to the engineering building wide open at that time? It was a Saturday. They were studying, but why were there no cameras or working cameras at that specific building? Was it targeted specifically because of that? Were they disabled? Were they just never installed? All of these things are valid questions that the president of the university and the police department and the mayor could be answering right now, but they just started again, and as we always see with their anti-gun and anti-2A narratives.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you had another wrinkle to the story, though, I believe.
Well, and as you mentioned, there have been a few more grainy videos coming out from just Ring cameras and cameras in people's houses. Nick Sortor says several new videos of the possible Brown University shooter have just been released from private home cameras.
Well, and these are obviously, I watched all these, we'll go through them now, but they're going to be far away cameras because these are on houses that are kind of just in the background showing the street. Mm-hmm. The university has a litany of cameras, more than most universities. This is an Ivy League school. The fact that they released extremely grainy photo and they're going after the wrong individual here was...
And they have continued to say they have no video from the building where the suspect is identifiable. So
this is the first video that we're showing you. This is the individual walking on the sidewalk of Benevolent.
mean, at least we can see his build, kind of.
And this is prior.
He
prior
looks
to
like a
this-
fat
prior to
guy.
the incident. Here we go again with this video too.
And not
Mike?
that young because of the gait, I would say.
And there was a gentleman I
Maybe
thought
walking.
they had potentially arrested at his house. They didn't say he was the suspect or anything. They didn't come out with a statement.
You want the third
But
video?
yeah, he did have the same build. So after the show, maybe there'll be another update. But
I'll continue to try to look for updates, but
You want to? This is some photos of this individual,
wearing a mask,
and
wearing
they will
all
all be
black.
timestamped. The last photo. Thank you. So we'll be providing this as well, and I ask you all to please make sure you all put them up, and then anybody in the public that has any info about this individual, we ask that you call our tip line, and we'll also have the numbers in the website listed. Mayor?
okay.
But then again, still useless.
Well, and I also think because, I mean, they have hundreds of millions of dollars in their endowment. This is an Ivy League school. This is one of the more well-financed schools in the States. Why didn't they have key fobs? Everybody that comes in and out, I know it's not
Even
a-
at my university, we had.
I know
key
it's
fobs.
not 100%, but at least if you have a key fob that's linked to an identity, most people that are coming in and out are going to have to scan. Even if they scan a fake ID, at least it's a lead to go on.
Or armed guards. And I think part of it is, and I will continue to talk about this with the whole Australia attack as well and tragedy, but I think Western countries and GATSAT is 100% right on the money, in my opinion, on this. There's the U.S. is big, and then the West is being thwarted by their own, and I can't even say the word on YouTube, but unaliving empathy. So the fact that they value their empathy and having to kowtow to everything, why weren't there armed guards at each building in Brown? They have enough money to do that, but they're spending it on underwater lesbian dance classes.
No, it's not that they're spending on that because there's plenty of money in the endowment for anything they want to do. They don't want pew-pews on campus because ideologically it doesn't agree with the leadership of the university or the students. And if that's the case, I mean, I honestly think there should be armed guards at every school.
And then the consequences of not having that. And again, even if it is on the weekend, you could have armed guards during the weekend. You have enough money to pay for them. But the priorities are completely upside down. And we'll continue to see. And again, now they're coming out with the narrative of anti-gun legislation. We need less guns, gun-free zones. Brown University, most universities are gun-free zones anyways. Providence, Rhode Island is one of the most gun-free places in the United States. And yet, here we go.
Yeah, of course. I don't know why you're saying that. That's not really a talking point. The talking
No, because
point.
it's infuriating that they continue.
No, they're going to target these areas that are pew-pew free zones.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously. And even if you do have an armed guard there, we're going to go into this when we get to the Australian story. But the police that were armed wouldn't even go after the attacker. They were trying to stay away because they were fearful for their own life, which is absolutely ridiculous. There was primarily a female cop that's on video that can
We'll
be
talk
seen
about that in a
can be seen doing that. That's why you don't have females as cops. And I'm sorry to say it, but if you do have females as cops and they're shown not going towards a shooter to kind of incapacitate them because they have the means to do so. Regular civilians in Australia don't because they've been detoothed.
And we've spoken about this quite a few times. I have a full video about why women shouldn't be cops now on our Spanish channel, but it is in English if you want to go watch that. I was really awkward at that time. But still with the Brown University shooting, one of the victims was identified, and some people are starting to question if this was a motive for the shooting. From BBC, it says Brown University shooting, what we know about the victims. Ella Cook, 19. Miss Cook was described by the New York Times as an accomplished pianist and standout student. Does it say yes? Martin Bertau, president of the College Republicans of America, said in a statement after the death that the group was devastated to learn of the loss of Miss Cook. She appears to have been the vice president of the Brown University College Republicans, and that is something that is being quoted and cited quite a bit, maybe as a potential motive, but maybe it could have just been coincidence as well.
Yeah, and like I'm a conservative, and I would like to believe that's the narrative, but I'm not going to jump to any conclusions here. They had a suspect they put in custody. I think somebody wanted to draw a narrative that it was a white guy that did the shooting. That's why they put out that guy. Then they had to come out later and said it's not. Now they're trying to draw a different narrative with this. I say wait a couple of days and see what the actual hard evidence is, who the suspect is. So we can draw more into it. At this point, I think this is a narrative war. You're seeing different factions trying to draw narratives from different victims and potentially a false arrest of a shooter. Liberals are trying to draw a narrative from that as well, which has been proven wrong at this point.
And that is where the incompetence of the actual investigation, same as with Charlie Kirk. Why do we think there's all these conspiracy theories floating around? Because of the incompetence of not being able to either fully release information or at least say, we do have the information, but at this time we cannot release it because X, Y, Z. It's a danger to the public because we need to build a case. Whatever. But if they just stay quiet or start showing the faces and names of somebody that is a person of interest but ended up being released, now his life is ruined probably from all the stuff online. His SEO online is also completely ruined by now.
Well, I'm just going to say
incompetence.
I'm just going to say it plainly. It's the incompetence specifically of Kash Patel. He keeps coming out with evidence that ends up being wrong later on. They keep trying to paint narratives. It looks like a possible false arrest was made in the January 6th Boom Boom case when they had the second suspect, maybe because they wanted to get away from the first suspect because that would actually implicate the government. But the evidence they're releasing on the second suspect is absolutely crazy. Viva Fry is debunking this in real time along with other channels. I mean, Kash Patel right now, along with his girlfriend, going after content creators, it's too much for me. And this is somebody I actually used to believe in, and maybe that's why I'm so hard on him at this point.
Mm-hmm. And Non says every official narrative stinks, and I think that sums it up pretty nicely and pretty plainly. Exactly.
Especially of recent times, like
because
we're gonna get into a lot of stories today, and usually I would be willing to paint a narrative. I'm not even willing to start painting a narrative anymore because usually my narrative is influenced by the information that's coming in, but there's been so much false information over this last year. I would rather just wait a few days and kind of give the facts.
And I always try at least to do the 48 or more hour rule where I do wait until I will report or talk about something that happened, but then until more stuff is provided or more evidence comes up or more information comes up, I'd rather just not give an opinion because too many people do that nowadays. And I do think my husband just left. I do think that that is part of the information warfare that is happening right now, and that a lot of people are falling prey to on all sides. But at the same time, then there's the question of, well, before, when we used to only have mainstream media and only have the official narrative, then that's where a lot of information was hidden. So it's a balance, I think, and we're never going to get it right as a society, as a species. And I think there will always be the information warfare. It's just being able to discern and critically think about each piece of news information or commentary that you hear.
Well, one thing I am glad with this Brown shooting is nobody from Israel is actually involved in this one, because then there's all kinds of weird conspiracies they start going down. I know.
Well, the conspiracies have started. I mean, not conspiracies, but the finger pointing has also started now because, again, it was a day before the start of Hanukkah, and apparently either the professor or somebody whose class it was or that was involved with the study group that was targeted apparently is Jewish as well. So it has already started once again. And yes, again, it's best not to dive into that.
Okay, you added quite a bit to this, so we'll just skip ahead.
We're here.
Yeah, we have. This is continuing with the.
No, this is another maybe false narrative. Something that again I won't give too much commentary on because it's still a big question mark. But Tim Pool says this is overt leftist extremism. The FBI has reportedly taken down 4 individuals that they say were planning a New Year's Eve boom big tragedy event.
Yeah, and I'm going to wait on this one. I'm not believing anything Kash Patel is saying at this point. I mean, I follow him and the cases the FBI has been involved in very closely, and I'm so disappointed. If this is true, I'm glad it's true, but until I get more evidence,
that they thwarted it.
Until I get more evidence, I'm not going to believe it.
Let's see what Tim Pool says.
The FBI has reportedly taken down 4 individuals that they say were planning New Year's Eve bombings. This news coming out just after we saw this mass shooting at Bondi Beach in Australia. And there are many people questioning radical Islam at this moment. Fox News reporting FBI arrests 4 alleged members of radical pro-Palestinian group accused of plotting New Year's Eve bombings. Individuals self-identified as members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front. They say federal authorities say they disrupted a credible terrorist threat over the weekend, arresting 4 alleged members of a radical pro-Palestinian extremist group accused of planning coordinated New Year's Eve bombings in Los Angeles. The FBI told Fox News Digital that the members self-identified as part of a radical offshoot of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, an extremist group motivated by pro-Palestinian, anti-law enforcement, and anti-government ideology. According to the FBI, they were allegedly planning coordinated bombing attacks on New Year's Eve using improvised explosive devices targeting 5 separate locations across Los Angeles. The agency said the 4 were arrested in Lucerne Valley, where they were believed to be preparing to test explosive devices ahead of the planned attacks. They have each been charged with conspiracy and possession of a destructive device. The FBI said Monday that a 5th individual believed to be connected to the same TILF extremist group was arrested in New Orleans for allegedly planning a separate attack. A TILF Instagram account said its founding chapter in Los Angeles and its goal is to free Turtle Island, an indigenous name used to refer to North America from the illegal American empire. Free Palestine, free Hawaii, free Puerto Rico, the account posted. Freeing the world from American imperialism is the only way to a safe and peaceful future. Now, the important thing to break down in this.
Okay, and I mean, there is such a built-in narrative. Kash Patel would eat this up and want to feed this to the public as red meat, and he has had so many failures lately. I mean, I really want to see the evidence. This reminds me of a story that we didn't actually bring on the show, but I wanted to, and it was about 2 North Texas gentlemen that wanted to take over Haiti, enslave all the women, and get rid of all the men. And they had plotted that. And then it went all over the news. The men were actually arrested for this, and the evidence was based upon a few text messages. Now, text messages aren't necessarily enough. Were there explosive devices? How intricate were those text messages? Were there people or FBI agents implanted with these individuals? Because hold on, we remember what happened with Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. That was complete entrapment. I mean, I have a wait and see approach, especially on this case.
And I do think, again, it is important to have that wait and see approach. There was video released of them taking down or going to the location of where these alleged planners were planning whatever they were planning. But again, I will also say, yes, let's question the narrative. Let's question if the information is actually true, if they did foil this, or if it's either invented or just based upon a few pieces and then they decided to come out with it way too soon. But I will also say, similar to with the Charlie Kirk assassination, why is now the right or the ones that ask questions so willing to not consider the actual extremist leftist violence that we have continued to see and we have seen since, I mean, Trump first descended the escalator.
Yeah,
and even before, the 70s, the 60s.
I can tell you why
80s.
We're not buying the narrative, because Kash Patel is completely screwed up at his job. And I'm questioning the competence of the FBI itself here.
Yes, I would, and I agree, question the competence of the FBI, but at the same time, don't think it is out of the question and out of the realm of possibility that it is a leftist extremist group that has been planning and continues, and they continue to plan these attacks, because or Islamic attacks as well.
You know what? I remember the Biden administration, and obviously I'm on the right-hand side of the equation, but I remember during the Biden administration, the biggest threat in the United States, as stated by the administration itself, was white supremacy. They were publishing white supremacy radicalist groups just like this that were on the opposite side during that administration. So this seems like this administration may be doing something similar on the other side.
But the left has actually proven during the Biden administration and before and now after their actual violent tendencies, fully proven and with evidence and facts, etc.
I agree, but this story just seems too cookie cutter perfect. And I will say this, Christmas is coming up and New Year's is coming up, and I am expecting a false flag attack or some kind of major attack during that
But how
time.
would we know it's false flag?
We won't until we look at the actual evidence.
Because I would also believe that there are attacks. We continue to see attacks all over Europe. I mean, Australia, of course. France has now canceled their event at the Champs-Élysées for New Year's because of safety concerns. And all of this does point towards Islam. So again, would it be a false flag? Would it not be a false flag? How do we know? Who do we point the blame at if all of it is questionable? Like, I do think a lot of these questions are letting actual culprits or actual
I'll tell you how
no,
we're not letting people off the hook. They made arrest in this case. They have the 4 people, but we have to wait till the trial when the evidence comes out. That's what we're waiting for. The same thing we're waiting for the Tyler Robinson thing as well. It's coming to a point the FBI is so incompetent. I actually have to wait for a trial or major releases of information to
But
draw
I
a
think
conclusion.
that's the way it should. That's the way it is. It usually is. I do think Kash Patel is, getting too ahead of his skates and releasing too much information too soon because he's trying to be like, oh, we're so transparent releasing information, but he's releasing the wrong information. So that's not a good tactic.
Well, I also think he's blundered so much. Anytime he thinks he does have a good case, he wants to really get that in the public eye and overcompensate for his failures.
But I will agree, Kash Patel is a gigantic failure.
Yeah, and so is Pam Bondi, and those two are supposed to be working
And
together.
it's interesting they haven't left yet. I mean, there was rumors, and we reported on that Pam Bondi might be exiting alongside Susie Wiles and Kash Patel, but then they went mum about that, and the Epstein files, more stuff came out, and the Democrats used it to smear Trump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we continue down this path where it's just blunder after blunder after blunder, and giving fodder to the other side.
Let's continue to go here because we do have a lot of stories.
Yeah, I'll just read comments for this one, and then we'll continue. Non says, wow, I hadn't heard about this story. And it was kind of a blip. It came up, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, and now it's gone quiet after Bondi Beach and the Brown University shootings.
And there has been a little bit of controversy around this story. I don't want to spread rumors, but that's also why I have skepticism, and I'm kind of waiting for more information on the story. If more credible information comes out, I will re-report on this story. And if they can convince me with evidence, I will say, yeah, this is legitimate.
And Nan also says, Kash Patel is an absolute failure. No one takes him seriously. He needs to go to treatment. Feels like it's going to be a dark holiday season. And
it seems like Bongino was able to get a little bit of breathing room from Kash Patel because they were joined at the hip, and it seemed like they were sinking the ship together. A lot of people are being a little bit more forgiving of who?
Dan.
Yeah, of Dan Bongino these days. That being said, he's reconnecting himself with this pipe bomber case, and it doesn't look like it's the right guy. So I hope he's smart enough to kind of disengage from that case.
But again, my question would be discernment, critical thinking. How or what is the evidence that the guy is not the guy, and actually looking at where those questions are coming from.
It's the cell phone towers, the pings they have. He's not there, and Vivo Fry went into a 2-hour analysis of it with a former FBI guy that actually does that. So,
where did they get the information that the pings are not there?
The FBI itself. Again, he's releasing information, and people are debunking the FBI with their own information these days.
But moving on to sad story where the suspect does seem to be the guy, unfortunately, and it's even sadder. Rob and Michelle Reiner's son, quote unquote, responsible for their deaths, police say. And this story came out yesterday, I believe. Rob and Michelle Reiner were found in their homes with their throats slit and with a bunch of stab wounds as well. And it seems like the police were pretty quick to go to their son, Nick, as a potential suspect, and now declaring him responsible, apparently.
Okay, and we'll go through this case really quick, along with the next one. That being said, this is an absolute tragedy. I feel for the man. I understand he had different political views, but this should not happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. And Trump's response to this is absolutely uncalled for, and conservatives are calling him out, which is a good thing. But just because Trump has a bad response on this, like he's had a bad response on quite a few people after they died, that's just who he is in his nature. That doesn't mean he's not a good leader. It just means he has bad takes after people do pass away.
Which is something he should work on, maybe, because we have seen a lot of the other people in the conservative space actually come out and give pretty nice and moving statements about Rob Reiner, because again, he was the director of Princess Bride. He was the director of When Harry Met Sally. Few Good Men, yes.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other movies that did mark American history, and they're able to separate what he did in his political activism afterwards and the greatness of his movies from the actual tragedy that is him being murdered by his own son.
Yeah.
And I do think, again, it's important to remember that human aspect and remember.
Yeah, because this isn't
Compassion.
this isn't a political incident like what happened to Charlie Kirk. So I think Trump, if he just wouldn't have said nothing, it wouldn't have turned political. It's starting to turn a little bit political because Trump went after this guy pretty hard when he was asked about his opinions twice now.
Yeah. And Rob Reiner himself did come out with a statement after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and that was pretty well said on Piers Morgan, and that clip is also now circulating alongside with movie clips and facts about his life and his wife's life. But just quickly, if you didn't know what we know, Nick Reiner is responsible for the death of his parents, legendary Hollywood director Rob Reiner and producer Michelle Singer Reiner. Los Angeles police said the couple's daughter discovered them, which is also horrific, in their Brentwood home yesterday, according to a source. The 32-year-old son was seen having an argument with his father at a holiday party Saturday at Conan O'Brien's home. According to a source familiar with the incident, he was booked on suspicion of murder and is currently being held without bail. I had heard his bail was set at $4 million, but then I think they took that away maybe. Rob Reiner's prolific work included directing When Harry Met Sally, Princess Bride, and A Few Good Men.
Okay, and that's pretty good for this story.
And again, those comments from Trump, I will say, were pretty out of line.
Out of line, and it could have been very easy to just say nothing in this particular case.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the right thing. That being said, it doesn't need to be continuously brought over as Trump's no longer a good leader now. He's done a million great things, and I'm going to look past the few times he does mess up, because he does mess up, and we do call him out on a regular basis on the show when I don't like the direction he's going, in hopes that we can push him in the right direction, because Trump is receptive to actually being pushed in the right direction, whether it was the jibby jab or a million other things. He does listen to his base. Hopefully he listens to his base and maybe puts out a little bit more of a sympathetic statement on this one.
But we do see, again, the difference and the contrast, not with Trump, but with everybody else, speaking about Rob Reiner and their admiration for his work and his legacy and his life and the tragedy that it is of what happened with his son. But
okay,
interestingly...
let's go into the next
story. I know,
story.
I'm segueing. Interestingly,
this is taking a while.
A few weeks ago, there was also another father that was seemingly murdered by his son, also in his 30s. Don Lucas says Grammy-nominated opera singer Jubilant Sykes has been stabbed to death by his 31-year-old son, Micah Sykes.
And I threw this in there because the news kind of came up again today. This happened a few months ago. But
a few weeks ago.
Both of the sons were around the same age. And so it was just very interesting that these sons are stabbing their famous fathers.
Or just their fathers in general. And maybe it goes to maybe show the state of, and the mental state of young people and of families, America, the West, who knows, the death cult that we live in. But yes, just a little bit more information. Son accused of ending Grammy-nominated opera singer Jubilant Sykes interrupts judge with comment about his mom. Micah Sykes, 31, is accused of fatally stabbing his father, 71-year-old Jubilant Sykes, at the family's home in Santa Monica on Monday, December 8th, so a few weeks ago.
And that's pretty good. I just kind of wanted to bring up the fact that there was a related story. So,
well, and again, maybe having the conversation about why are these young men, seemingly from very wealthy or very famous parents, stabbing them, and what does it mean? And
I think you would assume, some things I would want to look into here is maybe, are these kids on SSRIs or drugs? I know Rob Reiner's son was homeless for a long time, and he was traveling around the country and doing a lot of drugs.
And he was battling addiction.
So maybe now he looked like he was a little more cleaned up in recent days. So maybe he was on SSRIs now. That would be something to look into. Also, these were very wealthy families. So you have to think there's a liberal ideology here.
Maybe. Again, conjecture. But I will just say a lot of we were talking with some friends over the weekend about discipline, and I do believe discipline is love, and having that, helping kids understand where the boundaries are and actually not letting them cross them, or explaining why crossing them, the consequences, etc. And I do think we are missing that a lot, and overly medicating and overly also ignoring a lot of the signs that point to things like addiction, mental health, just in the name of being tolerant and being empathetic, and again, suicidal empathy. Yes, I see you going like this. From Nick Sortor, President Trump.
Now we're going to get into some actual political news. I know you kind of front-loaded that, so.
From Nick Sortor, President Trump announces he is signing an executive order to classify fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. No BOMB does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 die every year that we know of. And again, once again, connected to the story we just spoke about with Nick Reiner and his battle with addiction as well.
Well, yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily a good idea. I understand why Trump is doing this. The same reason he's labeling a lot of these cartels as terrorist organizations. If he labels fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, it gives him a lot more power through executive order. He's not getting a lot of cooperation with the House and the Senate, so he's kind of having to rule his presidency through executive order. That's the reason why he's making this label change on what fentanyl is. He can now start going into whether it's Mexico or Venezuela or Colombia and actually start applying more pressure, more military force, whether that's open military force or with intelligence agencies. So that's the reason for the label change. My question is, if he's going to label it as a weapon of mass destruction, is he going to exclude the pharmaceutical companies from actually using this and prescribing this? I don't think so. So I think this is just a way in order to get more power to go into these other countries.
Yeah, and I don't think so, because this substance is used a lot in the medical industry and for surgeries, etc. As a pain relief. It is when it is abused that it becomes a problem and has become a problem. But let's see what he said.
Deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. But before I sign the fentanyl order, we will pin the deadly fentanyl.
Yeah, and I think the country that this kind of opens up and allows him to apply more pressure to is actually Mexico. That's where we live now. We moved from Canada to here. You're actually originally from here. That being said, I don't think this order really pertains to Venezuela as much. I'm sure he's going to use it to go into Venezuela and justify his actions more. But China, I believe, is importing fentanyl primarily into Mexico and then the United States.
And the precursors.
And he really needs to connect this entire drug ring from Venezuela to Colombia into Mexico. Right now, he's not able to connect the dots between Venezuela and Mexico, especially for his base. If he goes in there with military force into Venezuela, his base might turn on him in the midterms. So I think if he is going to really go after Mexico even more, he's going to need to wait to after the midterms. I just don't know if he's able to win the midterms. Right now, it's not looking good, but I know he is making a lot of changes in the administration. We have reported that he's really reconnecting with his base. He's done enough with the corporate side of his base to now he can go back to the America First promises he kind of made.
And also, speaking of those promises and the America First promises, it does seem like there's some movement regarding elections from MAGA Voice. It says President Trump's DOJ just filed a lawsuit against Fulton County, Georgia, seizing all 2020 ballots. 2020, in this person's opinion, was stolen. But at least maybe more information might be coming, and now it will be available.
Well, this isn't the only election story. This is the only one I grabbed because we had so many stories for today. There's major information coming out from California, other states like Georgia, and they are gathering a ton of evidence. They're really putting pressure to get this stuff kind of settled before the midterms. If they can break a case wide open like this, or the stuff they're having broke open in California, they're going to be able to get rid of potentially mail-in ballots or election machines, which would have a huge impact on the midterms and the 2028 election.
Well, tonight, the Justice Department is now suing Fulton County to get access to ballots from the 2020 election. It is the latest move in a long dispute between President Donald Trump and Georgia election officials. Trump still claims widespread fraud impacted the 2020 election, but multiple recounts in Fulton County confirmed President Joe Biden's narrow win. The DOJ is now asking a federal judge to intervene after the state elections board said Fulton County refused to comply with a subpoena seeking election materials. Those include all used and void ballots, signature envelopes, and digital files. The county says ballots are sealed and require a court order to be released. We asked Fulton County election officials for comment. They said they do not comment on pending lawsuits. Well, tonight, the Justice Department.
Yeah, and they already have a subpoena. They're not releasing it. So hopefully you can get those ballots. But I know they're really going after election fraud right now. They want to do this. We're still a year out from the midterms. This is the perfect time to do it. Even if they're not successful at cleaning things up for the midterms, if they can just lay a foundation and continue on for the next couple of years until the next election, hopefully reform things before 2028.
Another thing Trump has done regarding the green plant.
Yeah.
I don't think I can say the word
Yeah,
on
it's fine.
YouTube. But from Red Wave Press, green weed stocks skyrocket over President Trump's potential signing of an executive order that would reclassify it from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3 as early as today. According to CBS News, Schedule 3 substances are considered to have medical value and a lower potential for abuse than Schedule 1 or 2 drugs. Medications in this category include Tylenol with codeine and a bunch of others.
Okay, you can go into the clip here and then we'll talk about it. I think this is huge. And I know Trudeau, when he made this reform, he got elected on this in Canada. And this was a big vote shift for Canadians. So I think it could have an election in the midterms as well.
Rising ahead of President Trump's potential decision on marijuana reclassification. The president is expected to file an executive order to reclassify marijuana as early as today. Companies like Tilray, Canopy Growth, and Amplify have seen their stocks increase over 40% since that announcement. Rising ahead of President Trump.
And this is huge. And I might not be the biggest fan of marijuana, but they need to do this. Why? Because a lot of these states have 3 strike rules. You get caught for 3 times, you're going away for life. You don't want people flooding the jail system over marijuana charges or petty charges like this, especially when a lot of people use this for medical reasons. And also, the federal government is really contradicting a lot of state governments that say it is legal in the state, but then the federal government really doesn't see it that way. So I think this clears up a lot of gray area by just kind of making it a Schedule 3 drug.
And again, I will say I don't agree with marijuana, and I do think it has more serious impacts than a lot of people realize or want to even admit. And I've both seen it firsthand, but also studies continue to come out and continue to be shoved down the wayside that prove that marijuana actually does have more serious health implications and impacts, especially on brain activity and brain development, than have been officially released.
But the amount of people flooded into the prison system for petty weed charges is, I don't want to see that. Like it's helping industrialize the prison system in the United States. These petty crimes, I'm just not for it.
Okay, and hold on. I was going to read from Non. He says, or she, I don't know. Non says, wow, now that would be monumental. I live in a free state. Other states arrest you for a roach clip. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I know friends that have been arrested for just having a roach in their pocket. And it's crazy to think how many people are actually locked up in jail, not just for weed charges, but in states that have 3 strike rules where if you get arrested 3 times, the 3rd time you're going away for life. Imagine that 3rd time you get arrested for having a joint in your pocket and now you're going away for 25 years. That's a huge financial implication, not only on the taxpayers, the government, but the crime doesn't meet the punishment in that case.
But I do think there has to be, like, the actual information of how it impacts, especially younger people, does have to be released. And it shouldn't be blocked by either activists or advocates or everybody else.
Yeah, this is one case, though, where weed has been shown through studies to actually have medical uses as well. So
yes, and as a medical tool, I agree. But again, the distinction between what is considered medical and what isn't. And, you know, I have a very hard line against substances and substance abuse. So I do think marijuana, when not used in a medical sense or for specific purposes, shouldn't be
Yeah, and I would
all over
disagree
the
with
place.
you there as well, because although you do have a hard line, you think alcohol is acceptable in society, and
I
I think
don't.
alcohol is far more.
No, I think it's far more dangerous
Yeah.
than weed is, but at the same time, studies have proven that marijuana does chemically alter brain development and how the brain works. And I think the fact that not a lot of people even know about that is concerning. That's what I say.
Okay.
Nonsense. I'll just read because it has to do with the
Yeah.
story, and then we're moving on. Nonsense. Oh, I wrote that.
You keep saying nonsense.
Sorry, true. Also says, I use it medically. I am 50 years old and disabled. It greatly improves my life. This is insanity, but keep this in mind. The reason there is so little research is because it was Schedule 1. True.
Yeah.
And again, I will say in the medical sense and the medical applications that it has, I think also more research has to be done. But for kids or teenagers or children that are now moving towards that as well, and we do see that the brain gets impacted, especially in development, that people take it as lightly as they do. Same with alcohol. I will say the exact same thing about alcohol.
I don't agree, just because I think kids are actually moving away from marijuana, moving away from alcohol and things of this nature.
No, marijuana is actually getting more popular as alcohol sales drop.
Okay.
Or alcohol consumption drops amongst Generation Z.
Yeah, I would
like
say.
an old woman.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
But now we're going on to still in the US, but Warren Buffett 7 months ago had a serious warning. He said governments always destroy their own money and US policy scares them. This is from May 4th during the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, but is still prescient today.
Yeah, this is very interesting because the yen is not the most stable currency. They have a very unstable bond market. They're highly connected, their entire economy, to the United States. So if the United States dollar drops, I would expect Japan to fall through the ground as well. The fact that he moved that much money into Japanese yen is really shocking. But a lot of people right now are seeing outside attacks on the U.S. financial market.
And obviously we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. And that's the big thing we worry about with the United States currency. I mean, the tendency of a government to want to debase its currency over time is no system that beats that. You can pick dictators, you can pick representatives, you can do anything. But the people, there will be a push toward weaker currencies. And of course, that is, I mentioned very briefly in the annual report that the fiscal policy is what scares me in the United States, because it's made the way it is. And all the motivations are doing a lot of things.
Okay. And there has been a lot of rumors, and I've talked about them on here, about digital currencies coming in, possibly an external and an internal currency for the United States. The United States is also dabbling in digital currency, possibly transferring their debt to a digital market or having it in their dollar and then debasing their dollar could potentially get rid of their entire debt. The Russian government recently accused of the United States of possibly plotting to do that and erase their entire national debt. There's a lot of moving parts. If you do see a lot of big whales like Warren Buffett start moving billions or even trillions of dollars out of the United States or out of the US dollar, it would be something to kind of watch. It would be an indicator of them debasing the dollar to potentially get rid of their debt.
And now we're jumping over to the other tragedy that happened this weekend in Australia at Bondi Beach, where 2 gunmen fatally shot and wounded a bunch of other people, but fatally shot at least 15, maybe now counting up to 16 people that were at a Hanukkah event at the beach the day before Hanukkah.
I'm just waiting for you to switch.
Father and son gunmen killed at least 15 people in attack on Hanukkah event at Sydney's Bondi Beach in Australia. 2 gunmen opened fire. Apparently now information has come out that it was a father and a son that did this on Sydney's Bondi Beach, killing 15, maybe now 16 people, including a child, officials said Monday, in what Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, we have a lot to say about him, called an act of anti-Semitic terrorism that struck at the heart of the nation. The shooters were father and son, authorities said. massacre at one of Australia's most popular beaches followed a wave of anti-Semitic attacks. One gunman, a 50-year-old man, was fatally shot by police. The other shooter, his 24-year-old son, was wounded and was being treated at a hospital, said Mal Lanyon, New South Wales Police Commissioner.
Yeah, and there's governments from all over the world trying to get a hold of this narrative for their own benefit. And this seems to be happening in every major story. These stories are being so politicized, and then they want to enact laws based upon this. The Australian Prime Minister immediately came out, started attacking guns, started attacking the right wing. The Israeli government instantly came out, said we need a special class because anti-Semitism is running wild in Australia. So they want to now have their protected class status. I completely disagree with protected classes, whether that's Christian, Muslims, Jews, or whoever. Everybody should be equal under the law. There should be no protected classes. Once you get a protected class status, you can no longer accuse that protected class of something. You no longer have free speech. Everybody should be the same under the law.
Police said one gunman was known to security services, again concerning, but Lanyon said authorities had no indication of a planned attack. Those killed were aged between 10 and 87 years old. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns told reporters at least 42 others were being treated at hospitals on Monday morning, several of them in critical condition.
Did you?
Well, I mean, you were saying no protected classes, etc. But I will say, I mean, we do continue to see the incompatibility of Islam and Muslims with the West. And it's just time that people start saying it out loud and more frequently. And a lot of this came after, of course, 9/11 in the US, and also a lot of the actual interference from Western countries into Middle Eastern countries, and having to bring in after asylum seekers and people, bring in more people since then.
Oh, and
looking at me like that.
And I'm just going to say the other side of the equation, since you're going to say that side. A lot of people brought up before all these attacks started happening in recent times that there was a lot of heat being brought on the Israeli government, and people suspected there would be Islamic attacks kind of popping up all over the place in order to have the focus on the Muslim community again. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. What I am saying is this is a tragedy for sure.
Yes, of course it's a tragedy.
But I don't like to see these governments come out and try to justify taking away people's First Amendment rights. Now, I understand in Australia they don't have First Amendment rights, but there's an attack on gun ownership. There's an attack on the right wing, and they're trying to get Jews as a protected class in Australia now.
But they also do that with Muslims. They also do that with Islam. It is also a protected class.
And I said I don't want a protected class. And I hear a lot of Christians, naturally under the law, Christians actually should be a protected class. They're saying they're not getting that status as a protected class. And I don't think that's a good argument. You should not argue to be a protected class. You should argue against all protected classes so everybody's equal under the law.
But again, with this, I will say cult, death cult, or suicidal empathy, as Gadsad would also call it. For too long, Western, specifically countries, have been ignoring an issue that is prescient, and it comes with just learning and knowing the history of Islam. And I know a lot of people might disagree with me, as you said, and I agree with the point that you said, not during the live stream, but earlier to me, that anybody that goes into any country should be background checked all the same. Like, there should be no special classes, protected classes, and a country should know who's going into the country and what their background is, what their backstory is, and what the connections are. Because here in Australia, we do see that both the father and the son did have connections to terrorist groups and cells outside of Australia and within Australia.
Yeah, and I think that's
the ignoring it and the Islamophobia, we can't say anything. It is time for people to start saying things about everything on all sides. But
yeah, and I think that's the correct issue to have. What countries are you going to have good immigration policies for that are going to assimilate to the culture in your country? If you have primarily a Christian culture within your country and you are allowing a lot of Muslims into the country, it might not be compatible. So the Muslims you allow in, you might want to actually have the entire family migrate rather than just military age men, or not let them in at all. If Like, you want people that are compatible. For instance, Mexicans or people from Mexico are very compatible with the United States because their religious backgrounds have the same basic ideology.
Foundational values and foundational core structure. And again, I think it's an issue that has been not ignored, but at least kowtowed to for too long. In the West, in Europe, especially in Europe, in Australia as well, in Canada. Again, the Commonwealth countries continue to allow this. England is almost fallen by now. And when people start getting sick of it, I hope they will rise up. But when they do, they're called also extremist, also right wing, also etc. And governments continue to support the people that bring less value to the country as a whole instead of their own citizens.
And maybe this can bring, and I know Christmas is coming up, so there's going to be more attacks for sure.
Hopefully
on Christians and on Jews. That being said, when people start asking for protected class status, rather than entertaining the conversation, what we should be saying is, well, why do we have protected class status? Muslim people have that protected class status, and so do other groups. Maybe we should take away everybody's protected class status and start treating everybody the same. That's the conversation I hope comes up from this, not that we need to include another group as a protected class. Okay.
From our Nafal, Bondi death toll hit 16. Albanese faces reckoning over ignored warnings. The deadliest domestic terror attack in Australian history just handed PM Anthony Albanese a political crisis he can't talk his way out of. 16 people killed, dozens hospitalized at the Hanukkah celebration. And now the details are surfacing that make this worse. Australia's anti-Semitism envoy released recommendations to combat rising attacks 5 months ago. Albanese didn't implement them. The gunman, one arrived in Sydney in 1998 on a student visa. The other, his son, was investigated in 2019 for association with an Islamic State cell. The father was licensed to own 6 long arms weapons, was a gun club member, and held a firearm permit for 10 years. Authorities knew, they investigated, they gave him a gun license anyway.
Okay, we can go into the clip here.
Okay. But again, I do agree with here Marinafal saying that this has all been, it's not like it's new and they didn't have this information.
Well, let's get back to our top story, and that's 16 people are now confirmed dead after Sunday's terror attack at Bondi Beach in Sydney. 2 gunmen, a father and son, opened fire on a crowd celebrating the first day of Hanukkah in a beach, or a park rather, next to the beach. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the shooting was a targeted attack on the Jewish community. Bloomberg's Paul Allen joins us now from Bondi Beach. And Paul, as you're there on the scene this morning and you assess what's going on, how exactly are we dealing with this, and where?
And it's been brought up a lot because the Australian government was one of the few governments that recognized Palestine as a state, and the Israeli government had put a deadline on the Australian government recognizing anti-Semitism and protecting the Israeli people as a protected class.
Where is the conversation also likely heading?
At the moment, the overwhelming sense is one of grief. The mood down here, very, very somber. And you can probably see behind me here, there is a floral tribute starting to build up. An Israeli flag has been draped around the flowers, an Australian flag visible in the background there as well. And you'd expect that tribute's probably going to build up over the course of the day. Just a steady stream of people coming here to lay wreaths and pay their respects. Now, as to who was responsible for this, 2 people, a father and son, and neither of whom are on any security watch list. The father, a 50-year-old, is deceased. He was a licensed firearms holder. He held licenses and legally owned 6 guns. Police say all 6 of those weapons are now accounted for. There are also 2 rudimentary IEDs, improvised explosive devices, found on the scene. They were active but later disarmed by police bomb disposal. Now, the other gunman, 24-year-old Naveed Akram, his identity became known after it was widely distributed on social media last night, so there was really no point in trying to keep that a secret anymore. He told his mother that he was headed down the coast. In reality, he was with his father at an Airbnb somewhere else in the city. That property now also the target of heavy police presence. Amid all of the carnage at that Hanukkah event, also notable acts of heroism, not the least of which from Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a 43-year-old fruit shop owner who, in extraordinary video, jumped one of the gunmen from behind. And
I will say this, I do expect more attacks because Christmas is coming up. I just want to remember I want everybody to remember kind of 9/11, what happened there. We don't need another endless war because there's attacks. If there's an attack, the individuals for that attack should be prosecuted. We don't need to go after entire countries. They're already trying to link this. The United States have come out with a statement saying this is because of Iran. If they can link the evidence to Iran, they're going to go after Iran. That's a bad idea. We don't need to go after entire countries and start forever wars. Get the individuals that were involved, and that's it.
But I do think the conversation around the compatibility of Islam and Muslim people in general within the West is one that has to be had and not ignored like a lot of the liberal governments want to continue to do.
And I'm fine if they want to limit migration from Islamic countries, but what I am not okay with is going to these forever wars with these Islamic countries.
No, let them go back and stay over there, and you stay over here and deal with your people and look after your own citizens, which a lot of these governments have just not done for the past who knows how long. But someone that did have a statement, and it was and continues to be replayed. And again, I do want to mention that man that did that heroic act. We can't show it on here because it's YouTube, but if you haven't seen the clip, it's all over X. The man that took attempted to take down one of the gunmen was heroic, and I am glad that came up as well.
And I'm kind of waiting because I was watching Piers Morgan earlier, and he went in a whole tirade about how the hero of this whole thing was a Muslim and that we should be praising Muslims, blah, blah, blah,
and that's
blah,
what
blah.
I mean with the whole kowtowing.
There's new information coming out that this man was from Lebanon. A lot of Lebanese people are actually Christian, and a lot of information is actually coming out suggesting this was a Christian man. That being said, we should not be virtue signaling whether this person was a Muslim or a Christian.
Yeah, that he was just heroic in what he attempted to do, especially because he wasn't armed himself. And now, speaking of arming or disarming citizens, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has come out with a lot of statements for gun control, against anti-Semitism, against Islamophobia as well, against right-wing extremism for some reason. So let's see what he said. Australians versus the agenda, which now they're even more against the agenda, I hope. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says tougher gun laws will be put to National Cabinet, including proposed limits on how many firearms individuals can own or use, and a review of license durations as governments consider tighter controls nationwide. I mean, we did see, and we did read from Meyer Navwal reporting there, saying that the man did have this permit for about 10 years.
We've been showing him a lot on our show. He is just making bad statement after bad statement. When it came to digital IDs, he's been in the news a lot, and he keeps putting his foot in his mouth, and he does it again here.
And I want to conclude finally by saying that the government is prepared to take whatever action is necessary. Included in that is the need for tougher gun laws.
I mean, I can look for it again.
No,
it's all over the place.
We got a bunch of statements from him. Sorry, the clip was a little low. We'll just go right into the next clip. I think it's him again. Is it?
Yes. Quickly from Jim Ferguson, quote, watch the script collapse live on air. Australia's Prime Minister just confronted with the question that keeps coming back. Have you actually taken anti-Semitism seriously? Etc., etc. The one we know.
And then we'll go Phil and then.
Left unchecked. As you were just saying, anti-Semitism leads to terrorism and violence targeting the innocent. Your government has come under criticism in claiming that it has effectively responded to the rise of anti-Semitism in Australia since October 7, 2023. In September, your government recognised a Palestinian state. Your ministers have attacked the Israeli government. Senior ministers refused to visit the sites of the October 7 massacres. And you created a special Islamophobia envoy alongside an anti-Semitism envoy. Have you taken the threat of anti-Semitism seriously? Can you guarantee the safety of Jewish Australians?
Yes, we have taken it seriously. And we've continued to act. We've continued to work with Jewish community leaders. We've continued to take all the advice from the security agencies to put in place special measures, and we'll continue to do so. Bill?
Okay. And yeah, he's the kind of politician that's going to go whichever the way the wind blows. And I don't really care if he's on Israel's side or Palestine's side or the shooter's side or whatever he wants to do. But as soon as the political winds aren't untenable, he's going to go right to the other side. That's the kind of politician he is.
And again, with the whole anti-Semitism angle, I do think a lot of people don't see it this way maybe, but I do. And again, I'm not a religious person at all of any religion, but I will say I think religion is important, especially in the West where we're losing it, and where Christianity and Judaism to a certain extent are being attacked, but especially Christianity, Catholicism, etc. But what a lot of people don't think or consider about, in my opinion, Islam or I can't say the word, about Islam coming to the West is that, yes, maybe right now it's against Jews, but eventually it will continue to be against everybody because the target and the goal, and we've seen a lot of imams coming out and speaking and the videos being publicly available for anybody to watch, is to take over these countries. That is the stated goal. And one of the ways they do it is through children. Another one is through propaganda. And they have these building blocks, and that is their stated goal.
They have voting blocks. They come in
And voting blocks.
They live in very tight communities, and they vote as a group. Then they take over that community, and they grow their voting block bigger and bigger and take over other communities. This is very common, especially in the UK. They have a ton of political power.
That has been also granted to them.
That being said, Christians are under attack on a global basis, whether that's genocides in Africa or churches being shut down in Canada or Bible verses no longer being able to be read in Canada as well, which we've covered. That being said, the way to solve that is not to make Christianity a protected class. It's to take down the protected class status of all groups so everybody's equal.
Yes, and I will read from Non. They say, watch them connected to Iran, which you also did say. Also says...
Yeah, well, 1 minute. They've already attempted to start connecting this to Iran, which is very interesting because it's the U.S. government and the Israeli government that said if they can connect this to Iran, Iran's going to be in a lot of trouble. Well, the event didn't even happen in the United States or in Israel. And now they want to go to war with Iran over this? That's crazy.
And also says, anti-Semitism is a stolen and perverted term. Semitic refers to a large group of languages, including Hebrew and Arabic. It was never used to describe ethnicity. Look it up. It's true.
I already...
Well, technically, it's not ethnicity. It would be religious affiliation.
Palestinians are considered the same thing as the Israelis. That's the thing.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not like anti-Semitism, at least the way it has been turned and used, is to say...
yeah, but that's
it's not against race. It's against it's not for race. It's for religion.
But not for the Jewish religion.
Purposes.
Okay.
Non says the hero is a Muslim named Ahmed.
Well, no,
that's still in doubt. That's the thing.
Yeah, there's new that was widely reported. For that, this is again countries trying to get a hold of narratives of tragedies, and now there's new information coming out that he was from Lebanon. People assumed because of his name he was Muslim. That's why that reporting was made.
Another reporting is from Syria.
When they're asking people, supposedly people from his family have come out actually said he was Christian. But I have friends from Lebanon, and Lebanon has a huge Christian population, so it's definitely possible. Mm-hmm. But that's why I don't want to report whether the man's Muslim or Christian at this point.
And also says, I don't care, but Netanyahu came out and said he was a Jew. Who was a Jew?
Oh, the guy that saved him. Yeah, I watched that. I watched that clip as well. Yeah, Nate. So that was the thing.
But again,
first the hero the hero that took the pew pew from the other man. The first thing they said he was a Jew. Then they said he was Muslim, and now there's new information saying he's Christian. I don't know what he was. When we do know, I will report on it.
I'm trying to look it up.
As you can see, all sides are trying to virtue signal on this thing right now and get control of the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole article speaking about how his parents are praising him for his actions, but they don't mention what religion. But again, should it matter? He saved a bunch of people probably, and he was able to kind of take down the guy at least for a little bit. So
well, and this is
praise him for that.
And this is another issue that we have in the States, especially with statistic reporting. If there's any kind of Islamic violence, it's classified as right-wing violence. The president of Australia is classifying this as right-wing violence, said we have to go after the right wing right now. So every story that we're covering today, it's just different organizations, different countries, different three-letter agencies trying to get a hold of a narrative and pitch it to the public so it can best benefit them, which is a shame.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out the official articles. Don't want to say, but again, should it matter?
Let's keep going here.
Or should we just condemn politicians from trying to, grab, or people, faiths, everybody trying to grab
we're going to go into
narratives.
We're going to go into Canada
now. Which is destroying itself. It doesn't even need help from the outside. And I would say, speaking of Commonwealth countries and countries that have allowed a lot of this to fester and fester and fester, unfortunately, I do think Canada might be, hopefully not, but might be one of the places where we see something happen over this Christmas season specifically, unfortunately. But from Concerned Citizen, meanwhile in Canada, quote, the tyrant in charge of Canada has just made it illegal to read certain parts of the Bible. The attack on Christianity throughout the West continues. And it does go with the story we were just saying. Canada to criminalize biblical passages with new hate speech law.
Yeah, and this is absolutely...
Let me go find the actual article.
This is absolutely crazy. People knew this law was kind of coming in Canada, but you don't have to find the article. We can just talk about it. The fact that this is actually becoming law now, this means preachers can't read certain passages from the Bible to their church. And if you read these things on the corner, or somebody accuses you of actually giving Bible verses that the government doesn't agree with, it's now hate speech. It's an arrestable offense. You can also get fines for these offenses.
Mm-hmm. I just want to see if they know what the actual passages are, what the motivations are. I mean, it's under hate speech, but specifically what? So Canadian MPs have voted to scrap a long-standing religious exemption from the country's hate speech laws following a deal struck between the Liberals. Because we're going to talk about that, there's been a lot of crossover and alliances forming within not just the Bloc Québécois, but the NDP, but also the Conservatives. The Fiery Commons Committee meeting on Tuesday saw Liberal MPs back an amendment to Bill C9, known as Combating Hate Act, which would remove protections for those quoting religious texts. Under current rules, anyone expressing views in good faith and based on belief in a religious text can avoid prosecution for hate speech. The Bloc has pushed for years to close what
we can leave it. We can kind of leave it there. That being said, I think the Quran's involved in this as well, if that's what you're trying to bring up.
No, I'm trying to see what the actual biblical passages are trying
to... the fact of the matter is, only Christianity is being prosecuted in Canada. Although it's supposed to be a protected class, they only recognize certain protected classes, or they're only enforcing the law a certain way. Churches are losing their nonprofit status if they don't think abortion is a good thing. Churches are being shut down all over Canada, especially independent churches. Over 200 have been burned as well in arsons. Christianity is completely under attack. This is just another way to fortify that attack by the government. And although the Quran and Islam may follow under the same law, it's not going to be prosecuted in the same way.
And as I was saying before, we're trying to connect it to this next story, we have seen a lot of, not a lot, but at least some politicians from the Conservative side flip over to the Liberals because apparently they know what's good for them, and their constituents are now left with somebody they didn't actually vote for. Let's see, from Mark Nixon, Tim Hodgson confirms there are a lot of inquiries to leave the Conservative Party and cross the floor to the Liberals. This is evidence that democracy is a complete joke, especially in Canada. You vote for conservative values, then floor crossers giving you the middle finger.
You're one away from a majority now. Do you think you can convince more to come over? Is there some people ready to defect?
Let's say I'm getting lots of inquiries.
You're one.
And you might not know, the Liberals in Canada won a small majority government. They don't, or a small minority government. They don't have a majority, but 2 Conservative MPs have now crossed the aisle. If one more crosses the aisle and becomes a Liberal, they now have a majority government and they can do whatever they want. So if they're going to call election, they might want to do it soon before another MP kind of crosses over. And it sounds like they're kind of showing that their hand, that they do have some people of interest. Basically, behind the scenes, these Conservative MPs are getting payoffs or bribes and coming over to the Liberal Party.
Mm-hmm. And let's go to the weirdest, funniest politician in Canada, same as his brother. From Mark Nixon, quote, Doug Ford just announced billions in investment to turn Niagara Falls into the Las Vegas of the North, mega casinos, a new theme park, and a plan to double tourism.
Yeah, this is a complete failure by the Canadian government. They can't get investment into Canada because it's flooding away at such a tremendous rate. Countries are bringing their manufacturing facilities to the United States. They're moving a lot of their headquarters to the United States. Canada is bleeding out right now. They don't know what to do. So now the government's going to step in and invest a bunch of money in some casinos and a theme park in a cold weather country like Canada. It doesn't work. Even in Vancouver, where we used to live, they have something called the P&E. It gets completely run down because it's exposed to the snow and the weather. And most of the year, your theme park isn't going to be able to run. On top of that, maybe they put it indoor like Dubai, but there's going to be a lot of upkeep on that building in cold weather as well. And property property values. The amount of land you need for a theme park is crazy. This is a bad idea. This is Doug Ford trying to say, I'm doing something. I'm a clown. Once this gets done, if this ever gets done, I don't expect it to bring a lot of money in. I know the casino in Vancouver opened before we left, and that didn't do big business because they're changing gambling laws in Canada. But even if by some miracle this clown of a plan turns around and brings some investment dollars in, you have to remember the other side of the Niagara border is in the United States. They'll just do the same thing, but they'll do it 10 times better and take all the business from Canada.
And a lot of the business that does leave Canada and the investment that could potentially go to Canada but is now fleeing and escaping is because of the regulations, policies, and all the barriers that Canada has put up within this insane, and the past Trudeau and now Mark Carney, liberal governments that don't allow for growth to come in. And as we're seeing with Alberta, that also try to stifle the few resources they could be taking advantage of, and the few that they do go right back to Ontario instead of staying in the provinces where they're actually produced.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce our government Destination Niagara strategy, a multi-billion-dollar plan to build new world-class attractions, elevate Niagara's casino and gaming experience, meaning we want more casinos, big, large casinos to come here, boost, and we are doing that.
I'm sure he would love more casinos.
One of the big problems and why casinos got so popular in Canada was money laundering. A lot of foreign money comes into Canada. They wash the money in the casino and then they buy property, and it skyrockets the value of the property. So normal citizens in the country can't actually afford to buy a house.
So all the big casinos in Niagara, I'm making a clear message to you. Welcome to Niagara. Boost local arts and culture and improve the region's transportation network with the ambitious goal of attracting 25 million annual visitors and generating $3 billion of additional revenue for Niagara every year. We want to double the number of visitors who come to Niagara every year, and we want to double the amount of time that they spend in Niagara, enjoying all it has to offer and supporting the local economy. Our strategy is built on 5 pillars, and I'll just run through them. First, we're going to build new must-see attractions. Imagine a theme park with rides and games and all-new Niagara River line with an electric tram running 3.8 kilometers through Queens Victoria Park with unmatched views of Niagara Falls. We've also welcoming the revitalization of the Toronto Power Generating Station into a boutique hotel and attraction with a spa, art gallery, and a free museum.
That's enough of his little plan there. It is a cold weather country. You only get a couple months out of the year where people are actually going to want to be at an outdoor theme park with a tram. Like, this is a bad idea, and they're out of ideas because everything they've been investing in, these companies have signed these contracts, taken billions of dollars, and then left to the United States anyway. Everything's backfiring on them, and I think they're out of ideas, and they're just trying to show the public something.
Because again, specifically because of the regulation and all the stops to do any kind of business in Canada there are right now. But
and we'll go to Europe after this story.
Okay, from Mark Nixon, quote, Daniel Smith says Alberta is open to shipping oil to the Pacific via the U.S. Alberta will go around BC if it has to. That's billions in lost economic activity for BC, ports, jobs, and revenue. David Eby, obstructionism is going to gut BC, British Columbia, and give Donald Trump everything.
Yeah, basically, Alberta is landlocked, and British Columbia, their neighbor that gives them access to the sea, is saying, no, you can't build a pipeline through here because they're corrupt and kind of going hand in hand with the Indigenous tribes of BC, blocking Alberta from actually building a pipeline.
And environmental activists as
yeah,
well.
so Alberta is just saying, we're going to go through the United States and we're going to cut a deal that way, which will ultimately lose Canada billions of dollars. Like, if they're going to build this pipeline through the United States anyway, they might as well build it through BC. Yeah. You can kind of leave it there. Let's go to Europe and try to get through these stories.
Okay, let me just quickly read the comments for you. The Canada section. Non says hockey is the greatest sport in the world. I don't understand it. I've never played it.
I don't like hockey as much, and I think it's a rich person's sport because you have to have the ice rinks, the amount of equipment you have. It's found that it's a very expensive sport to play. There's a lot of traveling involved as well. So
true.
I don't like hockey as much, but.
And Nunn also says, whoa, that's wild. I was going to ask what other religious texts are being targeted. That's why I wanted to see. The people want to know. That's why I wanted to read it. We'll bring that information on Wednesday, I guess, now, because I closed the story.
Well, it's all religious text that the Canadian government finds to be hate speech. Now, what do they find to be hate speech about some of these texts? It targets, again, protected classes. And this is why we shouldn't have protected classes, because then things can be classified as hate speech. If it primarily targets the LGBTQ community, I think those are the main verses they're kind of going after. This is why we need to get rid of all protected classes. Mm-hmm. But again, they're only going to implement it against the Christians because there's an attack on Christianity in Canada. Everybody knows that Islam is already a protected class. That's why they don't go after them, because it's racist to go after Muslims in Canada.
And the same question I always ask regarding hate speech and hate speech laws is, yes, right now they are the ones and they're the government that gets to decide what is included and what hate speech actually means. But what happens if the other side comes in and decides that everything else they believe in and their non-foundational moral values are actually hate speech as well? Then what happens? And that's the slippery slope of getting rid of actual free speech and deciding who can say what when.
Yeah.
Moving on to the UK and to this clown from Defiant L's Keir Starmer, the UK's Prime Minister, says he doesn't want to live near migrant hotels and let his daughter walk there. Yet he has a problem with regular citizens having no say.
Let's see. I'll comment after we hear what he has to say.
Okay.
Where there is an asylum hotel, how would you feel if it was a hotel at the end of your road? If your daughter was having to walk past one of these hotels every day, how would that make you feel?
I completely get it. I mean, local people, by and large, do not want these hotels in their towns, in their place, and nor do I.
I completely get it. I don't want them there either. Nobody wants them there, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm running the country. Donald Trump right across the pond is actually taking action while I'm doing nothing. And I'm going to call Donald Trump a racist for actually doing something because he's making me look bad. This is the buffoon we call Keir Starmer. He needs to get the hell out of the UK. Reform UK is coming. I hope they can make a change. I don't like a lot of the things Reform UK is doing, but it's the best of a bad bunch. It's the least wasted vote if you do have a vote in their upcoming elections.
And again, it's continuing with the same point that I was talking about with the unaliving empathy, I have to say, that God's side always talks about, where they're protecting the ones that are actually they're shipping in to destroy the country, and they continue to want to protect that. And same as Piers Morgan, it's like they don't fully understand the consequences of what they've preached for so long. And we're seeing it now in Australia, the UK, and Canada, other Commonwealth parts of the Commonwealth. I think we'll also be seeing the effects and the fruits of their stupid labor coming soon.
Yeah, they understand what they're doing. This is a coordinated attack, not just on the native population of the UK, but in the West in general and on Christianity. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue on.
But also something stupid that the UK is doing is, and we continue to talk about it, digital ID. And now we're seeing it escalate further and further from Big Brother Watch. Quote, people are covering their faces to avoid live facial recognition surveillance. The UK police is grabbing them off the streets for not complying and demanding their details.
And my favorite clips were of the European Union today. I think it was just the craziest stories, other than the banning of Bible verses in Canada. I mean, this is insane. You're allowed to wear your veils if you're Muslim, but if you want to cover your face because you don't want to be digitally tracked, that's a no-go.
And I do agree where it says this is not a slippery slope, it's a cliff edge. We must stop facial recognition. They won't listen to us.
There's a facial recognition ban. You've covered your whole face up like that.
This man didn't want to be caught by the police cameras, so he covered his face. Police stopped him. They
hold on. Let me make it a bit faster.
Photographed him anyway.
There's no law. There's no law against covering your face. Yeah, okay, well, there you go. You let him go then.
Well, maybe it's
because I don't consent to being on there.
Oh, right. Okay, why's that?
Because I think it's a bit of a government overreach.
Oh, right, okay. That's fine. Can we take your details down? Is that all right?
Don't cover my face. I cover my face. Don't push me out when I'm walking down.
The police said this was disorderly behaviour, so they gave him a fine.
I've got now £90 fine. There you go. Look at that. You let them know that he's got a right to cover his face and he can walk away.
The thing is, we live in a country which is free. We don't have to carry ID. So we don't live in a state where the police have the right to see your ID willy-nilly. This takes away my freedom because you're IDing me without asking.
Yeah, and this is wrong on so many levels. Number one, it's not a law that you have to show your face. Number two, if it is a law that you have to show your face, we can't have two different laws. One group is allowed to cover their face, as in Muslim women, but everybody else has to show their face to the digital cameras. I mean, this isn't even enacted as a law, and they're giving fines out for disorderly behavior.
Because again, you have to go with, as the account was called, Big Brother, and you have to comply with whatever the government needs or wants from you and whatever control they want to exert over you.
Well, there's a third part of this, and it's like, are they going to arrest him for hate speech because he's posting that video online after?
Oh, that too.
So, like, the UK has really lost their way. It's no longer a democracy. It's no longer has true Western values. When Trump points out the UK and the EU, he's doing it because he wants to push them in the right direction. Yet they just seem to push back harder and really go against their citizens' will.
And now moving on to the war and the apparent war they want to continue to have, both in basically all of Europe and the UK. From Basil the Great, quote, Germany to bring in conscription after latest recruitment drive fails, because of course, who wants to go fight for a government? Okay. Have you considered recruiting from the millions of fighting-age men you imported from the third world? Nobody wants to fight for a multicultural economic zone.
And you don't have to play the clip because he speaks in German here, but it hasn't been enacted yet. But because the recruitment has failed, they're prepping everybody for it, saying they're probably going to have a recruitment. Other places in Europe have already started this recruitment process. Trump is eking closer to a peace negotiation. Europe does not want this. They need that war with everything they have to continue to float their economy. Imagine if there was a war, an actual declared war that Europe was involved in. They're already stripping freedoms from their citizens at every chance they get. If a declared war happens, they can enact all kinds of legislation that normally isn't allowed during peacetime. It's going to be, I dread to think what Europe's going to turn into if they actually have a declared war.
And to be able to, once again, continue to enact the things that a war would allow them to enact, specifically around control, surveillance, and its population.
Speech is majorly confined during a time of war. So
and the economy.
Yeah, the legislation's already passed. So there's special legislation. So if a war is declared, then the laws change dramatically. The same thing happens in Canada as well.
But the UK also, from British Intel, not actual British Intel, that's what the account is called. It says, quote, UK preparing the entire country for war. Rhetoric intensifies. The Defense Secretary has admitted the UK is rapidly developing plans to prepare the whole country for war. There is no longer, this is no longer abstract briefings behind closed doors. It is being spoken about openly. And do you want to watch this?
Yeah, we can play the clip here.
Okay, let's just watch the clip.
From Mark Rutte yesterday, the Secretary General of NATO, warning about the prospect of war. And he put it in really stark terms. He said, we are Russia's next target and we are already in harm's way. And you sort of wonder why he's saying that now. And you get the feeling that perhaps it's partly in response to Donald Trump accusing Europe of being weak and not ready for war and not stepping up in terms of its military preparedness around the war in Ukraine. So it's partly about a message to European people, you do need to spend money on defence, but also getting people ready psychologically as well. Yeah, and we've seen that again. The UK are reflecting that as well. The Armed Forces Minister, Al Kans, has said the UK is rapidly developing plans to prepare the whole country for a possible outbreak of war. So we're seeing some of that rhetoric here as well.
And I wonder how people feel about it. And I mean, I put it to you, and I think about this quite often myself. That sense that there is war not far away from us. What does that do to how we feel here and how...
From Mark Rutte yesterday, the Secretary General of...
And do you have anything to say about this?
Well, and I'll connect it to the Australia story and what I said about Canada. I think Europe and the war that they're not preparing for and that they're ignoring is right at their front door and being imported by them over and over again with an ideology that is not compatible with their way of life and that wants to take over. That is the war that they should be worrying about, not the ridiculous war that they want to perpetuate for their own gains.
Well, we have to just think about this logically. Russia has always been invaded through Ukraine. That's why that territory is very important for them to kind of capture so they can stop a possible invasion, especially with NATO continuously moving east. That being said, I don't think Russia wants to go any further than Ukraine. Why? There's nothing in Europe. They don't have any natural resources. You look at Russia, on the other hand, it's estimated that Russia is worth $74 trillion in natural resources. They're the most wealthiest country when you look at natural resources. Europe has everything to gain by conquering Russia and very little to lose because their population's already turning against them. So if they lose that war, they lose the half of the population they wanted to get rid of anyway. Russia has nothing to gain in Europe. There's nothing there but a bunch of people that want to kind of go on the welfare system. If they conquer that land, they're going to have to financially support all these citizens, and they're not going to get any natural resources in return. There's nothing to gain for Russia by continuously going in that direction. This is fear-mongering by the UK and by the EU.
And since we finished the Europe section, I will read Sean. I will read the full name first, and then just Sean. Sean formerly artist John, and I can't say that last part, but says basketball and soccer are the world's sports. No one is playing ice hockey in Brazil or India, much less Africa. Sorry, dude. I mean, Mexico does have a national hockey team, and I used to have friends that played in it. But yes, it's not a very big
hockey
sport.
costs too much. Like I was watching the people that get recruited and everything else. The fact they have to come from families with money because it just costs too much for the equipment. You have to rent rink time and then the travel for hockey as well. I used to do jiu-jitsu. I think I like wrestling a lot as well, but these are individual sports. So as far as team sports go, I used to play basketball, but I think soccer, even though I hate the sport, it is the world sport.
I was a competitive dancer, but I will agree with, and as a Mexican too, I will agree with President Donald Trump recently during the FIFA sorting of countries. He did say that football is the actual word for soccer, and that soccer is a made-up word, and that the rest of the world calls it football, so the United States should too. So football is the biggest sport in the world, not soccer. Soccer
You're going to
doesn't
confuse
exist.
the Americans.
Good. They have been confused for too long calling it football.
Well, let's get into Chile here because this was an interesting.
Yes, we rarely talk about Chile, but they just did have elections going on, and the second round, where it was between a communist and a pretty right-wing dude, just came to a head yesterday.
A former snot. We'll say
not
snotzy.
actually, but not actually. He's called that by the opposition. He wasn't actually.
Oh, okay.
Nazi,
but he had some connections.
Dubious connections. Yeah, dubious connections that have been mostly debunked, but still. From Visgard24 says, quote, Chile announces they will send a protest note to Colombian President Gustavo Petro after he said, I will never shake hands with this Nazi, following the conservative candidate Jose Antonio Cast's win in yesterday's presidential election.
Yeah, and he speaks in Spanish, I believe, but would we...
Do you want me to translate?
No, we can... okay, if you want to.
Well, do you want me to or no?
Well, no, I just brought it up to talk about the Chilean elections because they've kind of been in the headlines a lot. And I don't want to go too much into his connections, but yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of people in Latin America, especially more conservative or right-leaning, but especially those that are under the types of governments that we are, very leftist governments, very basically communist governments, or that's their stated goal, like here in Mexico with Morena and Claudia Sheinbaum, like in Colombia with Gustavo Petro, Venezuela, I mean, obviously. And Chile was one of those that used to be very on the left with Boric, who is now exiting. And again, the race in Chile was between Jose Antonio Cast, which is pretty much on the right, really right, and then communist Janet Jara. She was a declared communist from the Communist Party. So it is interesting that finally Cast won, because now in Latin America, we did also just have the Honduran elections where another right-wing presidential candidate won. The left didn't want to accept it. In Chile, we've also seen over the past yesterday and today protests about Jose Antonio Cast being quickly quelled by the government itself, throwing water cannons at them. But in Honduras, they also didn't want to recognize the presidential win from the right wing. We are seeing Latin America slowly, and I hope faster now, go towards more right wing after the decades of leftist and communist governments we have had. And here in Mexico, we still have 5 years to go with Claudia Sheinbaum. But I think because she's failed so bad in the past year, we will hopefully see also reignition of a birth, because we don't have conservative or right wing anything here in Mexico.
I don't think what's happening in Central and South America is organic in any way. We now have seen Argentina, now Chile, El Salvador, Honduras, as you said, all going right wing, and all with the United States really tipping the scale, especially in the Argentina elections. I do like the fact that they are going right wing, but there's so much corruption in Latin America that I don't really know if it's going to make a difference if they're left or right wing. That being said, there's two golden gems in South and Central America, and that is Brazil, which we'll see what happens. And then
still dominated by a communist
right now, but
leftist
before
government.
it was right wing.
Yeah.
So
And now they jailed that guy.
well, no, he's living in Miami, I think.
Now he is, but they tried.
But then Mexico. So I think in 5 years, when the Mexican election comes up, there's going to be a lot of interference from the United States, and I think it's definitely going to be a right wing candidate if Trump or Trump's successor can actually win the elections in the United States. That might be the only thing kind of saving the Mexican elections from American interference. They're going to be so concerned about their own elections in that time frame, because it's right around when the next American election is, that it's going to be interesting what happens.
It's a year after, but yes. But I will say, for decades now, Latin America, South America, etc., has been dominated by a concerted effort to push through these very leftist, very communist, literally, governments that have ruined a lot of countries and have deepened, because it already was there, but that have deepened the corruption and the corruption within the systems themselves in a lot of these countries. I'm specifically talking about Mexico, but also in Chile. And they were able to hide the failures for a long time, but then the actual failure came knocking at the door, and the people had no idea what had happened. Same with Argentina and with the Peronism movement. In Colombia, we're seeing it with Petro right now. Brazil with the ousting of Bolsonaro, etc.
What we're going to have to realize is we're starting to live in a multipolar world, and the United States is trying to take over the Western Hemisphere and really put their influence within the Western Hemisphere rather than the whole globe now. So America going forward is going to have a huge influence. That being said, because it is a multipolar world, and I think China and Russia and India are going to have different regions of the world, the countries that cooperate with their partners and really enrich the entire region are going to do best. So I hope now that the United States is looking at the Western Hemisphere, they actually work in cooperation and strengthen other countries rather than put their boot in their neck and keep them under them. So.
And I will read, because after this, we're heading over to RUMBLE. If you're still here on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and it is free at the end of the day. So Nan says soccer is a communist psyop. Lol, joking mostly. I mean, it is the favorite sport of Latin America. So Nan also says, Sean says, no, it's soccer. No, football.
No, football. Soccer.
In the UK, even, where it was invented, it's called football. So there.
Soccer.
Sean also says, we saw a revolt in Bulgaria and Chile and Argentina. Hope things get better. And I think now that there's, at least in the southern tip of Latin America, this concerted, and I mean, they talk to each other. They're not fans of each other, Milei and Gast, but at least they're friendly enough. And we didn't get, I mean, the best thing in Chile is that they didn't get the communist Janet Jara, which would have been a disaster right after Boric.
Yeah, you also have to remember drugs have a lot to do with the corruption that's going on in Central and South America. Trump really looks to be combating that. The UK has a lot of influence in Venezuela through drug organizations there and things that are going on there. Now that Trump is focusing on the Western Hemisphere, I really hope he's looking at it from an economic strategy and getting rid of corruption. You really have to root out corruption so you have trustable partners rather than partners you're going to pay off so they do what they want. That being said, if you end up getting a democratic government again in the United States or a liberal government, I think the corruption is going to worse in Central and South America, because that's how liberals like to run countries that they cooperate with, is pay off the top. So they do what you want.
And hold on. Sean says, hold on. Yes, Sean says Bolsonaro is back in Brazil under house arrest, I believe. I believe he came back and there were, some issues.
Well,
I haven't really looked into it recently.
If he's back there, that might be an indication that they're prepping him to kind of take over after.
Who knows? It's still a long while to go.
He cooperates a lot with the Trump administration, so I could see something happening there.
Non also says, great show. Thank you. I find myself agreeing and disagreeing with both of you on different topics.
Oh, that's
I
good.
gotta run hasta la próxima vez. And that's the whole point. And that's why I keep saying, I want people to disagree with me and to challenge each of our points and each of our points of view as well, because that's how you critically think and discern and grow in the way that you form your own arguments and your own ways of thinking.
And thank you for everybody that has written comments, because it helps the show flow a lot better. We used to get no comments and it was a little dry. So I love having comments, by the way.
Yes. Sean also says Pinochet saved Chile, making it a South American economic leader, and he was thanked by spending his last days in the UK under arrest. I will say, while the economy did improve under Pinochet and past the leadership that was before him, I do have a lot of friends from Chile, and I do have to say it was a bloody takeover, coup d'etat, and dictatorship. But at the end of the day, I do think a lot of even with the whole discussion around Nick Fuentes, I do think history is only written and rewritten by whoever wants it to be out there and whoever is able to control the narrative, while ignoring other facts that could help also explain certain things that happened that nowadays are not even talked about.
Yeah, now with the right-wing government in Chile, we might actually see them align with the United States, especially with the United States' new plan for the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope that's the case, because China has been treating the coastline of Chile like it is their own.
Yep.
They are strip fishing that entire place, and the Chilean government can't do anything because they don't have a real navy or a real military to kind of defend it. But yeah.
And Borch's government, who is the one that's just leaving now, almost wanted, it didn't fully pass, but they wanted to change the constitution to allow China and other mining companies to go and mine all of the south of Chile, which was protected. They were able to pass certain things, but now that China is making a strategic, I hope, exit from Latin America, that won't happen. But the left, who's so environmentally conscious, was willing to essentially sell all of the south of Chile and protected areas for mining, because Chile has a lot of mining potential, but it was being managed before, and they wanted to just give it all to China for their own convenience. Here in Mexico, they're doing the exact same thing, unfortunately. Hold on. Sean says, great show, Nat. Good seeing you on WDW Pro again. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for watching that one as well. It was a little bit chaotic.
Oh, and you're there again this Thursday, I think.
I believe
most
so.
likely.
I gotta check if they are, and because I don't always have time to watch all of their other things, but I gotta check if they are doing a show this week or this Thursday. I'll email them. Sean also says, like California, super corrupt, my home state, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah,
and I feel really bad for you. I'm sorry.
I used to live in California, and man, it's going to hell in a handbasket in a quick way. And because they have because the election system is so rigged within California, you don't even need an ID in order to vote. They won't check your ID if you bring it to the polling station. I don't see it's ever going to change unless Trump can really key in and start uncovering election fraud, so we can go into individual states and start pressing charges on people and cleaning house. So maybe we can get a fair election. But without a fair election, California has no hope. Even with a fair election, it's a fairly blue state, but at least if they can clean up the elections, people will Republicans will go out to the polling stations because they think their vote might actually make a difference.
Yes, and then if you can eventually escape. We escaped Canada. It took 4 years and a half to save up enough to leave and come back to my home country, Mexico, which is also going to hell in a handbasket, but we're here to save it. So now we're heading over to RUMBLE, and we do have an interesting and story that I am pretty proud of, which is Billboard Chris appearing before the European Parliament. I used to work with Billboard Chris back in Vancouver in Canada when he was way smaller, and I'm so happy and glad that he's gotten so big and has this platform and continues to speak out against the indoctrination and the mutilation of children specifically, because it is, even though the US has mostly admitted that it's wrong, other countries continue down this path. In Mexico, we're just seeing this starting. So I'm trying to get an interview with Billboard Chris, specifically talking about Mexico and what they're reinforcing here. But yes, so we're heading over to RUMBLE, the green monster, to talk about these issues that YouTube doesn't like still. So there is still a lot of work to do there with Billboard Chris.
And we'll see you over at RUMBLE.
And, oh, sorry, Sean says, agreed, guy, and says, I left, but I miss home. See you guys. Well, glad you left, but yeah, it's never nice to have to leave your home because you're being terrorized out of it. But yes, going over to Are You on BLD, the show is not over. We will have a card eventually here that says where we're going, but for now, we'll see you there.
Okay.
Hold on. Don't say anything outrageous. Okay, now you can see.
Okay, somebody's
Outrageous
come
things.
over already.
No, thank you. Hopefully it's